You're listening to the Vox Media Podcast Network.
This is What the Heck with Mike Heck on MMAfighting.com. Now, here is your host, Mike Heck.
What the heck?
Well, hello there, everybody. Welcome to a brand new edition of What the Heck on MMAfighting.com. My name is Mike Heck. Thank you so much for watching or listening to the show this week. And what a week it is, everybody, because for the first time since right around March 9th or so, we can say it's fight week for the UFC. Sports are back, MMA is back, and it is back on Saturday night, emanating from Jacksonville, Florida, UFC 249, and this card is something else. Of course, the fight everyone's been talking about, the main event for the UFC interim lightweight title, Tony Ferguson taking on Justin Gaethje. Co-main event, Henry Cejudo defending his bantamweight title against Dominic Cruz. I am so fascinated by that fight. I can't even begin to tell you. I think that's the storyline of the entire card. Obviously, all eyes are on Ferguson and Gaethje, but storyline-wise, I'm a big storyline guy. Cejudo versus Cruz has all the stories. Very excited for that. Then we got Francis Ngannou versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Huge fight in the heavyweight division. We got Jeremy Stephens versus Calvin Kattar. Huge fight, 145 pounds, which, by the way, if you missed it, I did speak with Calvin Kattar on Monday. That is up on the MMA Fighting YouTube page, so go ahead and check that out after you watch the show, of course. We got Greg Hardy versus Yorgan De Castro. That rounds out the main card. The prelims are fantastic as well. I mean, Anthony Pettis versus Donald Cerrone is on the prelims. That's how crazy this card is. A lot of great matchups coming up on Saturday night and over the next 9 or so days, and even more than that as well. We're going to talk a bunch about UFC 249 on the show this week. And after Saturday, short break, back at it again on Wednesday night on ESPN Plus. Anthony Smith versus Glover Teixeira will headline that event. And then next Saturday, May 16th, Walt Harris versus Alistair Overeem will be the main event for that card. A lot more on those events coming up on the program as well. There's, of course, a lot of other things to discuss. We're going to save those for another time because we are loaded this week on What the Heck. So let's run down the lineup and we'll get right to the first interview. Closing things out, the main event, so to speak, a man who, as you'll hear, wants to be the new commissioner of Fight Island, Michael Chiesa. We're going to talk about his Instagram post last week, which made some headlines, where that all came from, how he's found his new professional rival. Plus, we're going to get his perspective on some of the big fights happening this Saturday at UFC 249. Before that, we're going to check in with one of the newest members of the UFC roster, Ike Villanueva, as we confirmed and was first reported by my good friend Nolan King on Friday night. Ike Villanueva will fight the returning Chase Sherman on Wednesday night in Jacksonville. And for those who have followed my career pre-MMA fighting, I spent a lot of time interviewing a lot of the up-and-coming fighters, guys who are on the cusp of a UFC call, a lot of prospects. And Ike is one of those guys, and at the age of 36, he is finally getting his shot. If you don't know who the Hurricane is, you're going to learn all about him later on in the show. The Wizard himself, Ryan Hall, is going to join us a little bit later on. What a fascinating guy he is. He was scheduled to face Ricardo Lamas this past weekend at that event in Oklahoma City. Obviously, it was postponed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but the fight has not been rescheduled to this point, and Ryan's going to explain why. Plus, we just talk about a variety of different things, including Ferguson versus Gaethje. Loved his breakdown on that fight. It was just one of those conversations that I enjoyed so much that I actually lost track of the time. That's what happened. I mean, it's just a really good conversation. I really enjoyed it. That's coming up later on. I think you guys are going to dig that one. In around 20 minutes or so, you're going to hear from one of the fighters a lot of folks have their eye on in the UFC women's bantamweight division. Julia Avila, the Raging Panda, is going to join us to talk about her scheduled fight with Carol Rosa being off the table not once, not twice, but 3 times, and also when she may be able to get back into the octagon to build upon her successful promotional debut back in July, a unanimous decision win over Penny Kianza during International Fight Week. But more importantly, Julia is doing amazing things in the fight against the coronavirus. You'll hear all about that and a lot more shortly. But first, let's check in with a man that's returning to the octagon over this trio of events over the next 9 days. That is going to be your boy, Eryk Anders. But before he heads to Jacksonville to take on Krzysztof Jotko on May 16th, he's going to join us right here on What the Heck to talk about the fight, preparing and sharing the card with his good friend Walt Harris and much more. Here he is, your boy, Eryk Anders. All right, we are being joined by your boy, Eryk Anders. He'll be back in action in around a week's time. May 16th, he's going to face Krzysztof Jotko in Jacksonville, Florida. The UFC is back, and so is Eryk Anders. Eryk, how are you?
Man, doing awesome, man. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. This has been quite the road for everybody, and this fight was supposed to happen on April 11th in Portland, and now you got the same matchup just around a month later. From talking to you for so many years, even before your LFA days, something tells me outside of the actual date on the calendar that not much has changed for you. Is that accurate?
Man, yeah, not much at all. You know, we've been training pretty much just, to be honest with you, kind of ignoring the coronavirus. And, man, I think, you know, me and I know my kids and, you know, maybe 2 or 3 other people from the gym probably already had it in early January. You know, a bug kind of came through that everybody just kind of wrote it off as the flu. So, you know, I'm good. I'm sure I already got the antibodies and everything. So I'm just ready to show up and fight now.
Yeah, that's something I was thinking about as well, because I never really get sick. Like, I have seasonal allergies, and that's the worst it gets for me throughout the year. But in February, my 7-year-old got sick. I got so sick. I was in bed for a week straight and never felt that way before. So I probably had it, right?
Yeah. Man, my youngest son slept for literally 24 hours, and he never sleeps. And he was sick, not feeling good, and all that other good stuff. And man, I you know, his wrestling coach came to the gym and was training and working on some wrestling and stuff like that. And he was like, "Yeah, I had it. My wife was a nurse. I didn't get tested for it, but she got tested for it and was positive. So she had it, I had it, and I'm sure that, you know, several kids on that wrestling team had it as well."
Sheesh, what a wild time, huh?
You know, but you know, everybody's over it now, so it's all good. You know, sports are, you know, starting to come back online and whatnot, starting with the UFC. So, you know, I'm super happy to be a part of the organization that's kind of putting the pedal to the metal and making things happen.
So once this fight got officially postponed, you just kept training, going about your everyday life, and when the phone eventually rang, you were ready to go.
Yeah, man. You know, I pretty much live in the gym and train all the time. So, you know, outside of like my diet and more like cardio sessions and things like that, you know, I'm pretty much doing the same thing anyways.
So what has it been like, you know, being in Alabama? Like, I know it's under a lot of the same restrictions as the rest of the country. So how have you been sort of handling the day-to-day structure of training and getting ready?
Man, you know, like I said, we never stopped training, even when they said shut the gyms down and all that other good stuff. We were supposed to fight in April, so Walt and I were supposed to fight in April. So we just decided to keep grinding, keep training, keep working. And then, you know, we even got, you know, snitched on. Some lady came up to the gym. I don't know who she is, and we didn't get her license plate number or nothing like that. But she came up to the gym, was looking in the glass, saw us training, and turned around and started pushing buttons on her phone. So we all know what that is. And then 5 minutes later, the police showed up, said we had to go. So, but as soon as he left, we finished our training session anyways, and then, you know, took off. So, man, really the only thing that's changed is like the times that we train, because, you know, we people are like that. And we do have to like sneak around under the cover of the night and whatnot. So, you know, we might train at like 12 noon one day and 6 at night the next. So the time of training is really the only inconsistent thing yet.
What's like the sleuthiest thing you guys have done to get a training session in? Have you had to like block the windows or anything like that? Like, cause you know, you don't want to get snitched on again.
Man, we were going to do that, but we actually opened up a bigger location right down the street. So, you know, we just kind of acted like we were doing construction and stuff and laying mats down. And the new spot, like the front of the building faces away from the highway, so you can't see inside unless you drive past it. So, you know, it's we haven't been snitched on yet. So hopefully we get past these next 2 weeks and, you know, then, you know, it is what it is.
That's pretty rough, man, that someone would just snitch on you like that. Like, to each their own. And I understand like people are, you know, they look at the coronavirus in different ways. And I guess you have to kind of agree with all the stances here. But to have someone actually like look in the window looking for trouble like that had been a little bit frustrating, right?
Yeah, man. You know, she was gone before anybody could get to the door. And, in hindsight, I wish that she wouldn't have been. I'd have gave her one of those in her face before she called the police. So, give her a reason,
There you go. So when do you guys all head out to Jacksonville? I know it's like a 7-hour drive from where you're at, but a short flight. So that has to be pretty convenient. When are you guys going to head out?
We're leaving on Tuesday. I usually, when I fight at 85, man, that weight cut can get a little drastic, and flying on the plane makes you like retain water, at least me anyway. So I usually try to get in on Sunday. They said we can only get in on Tuesday, so I think we get in at like 6 p.m. on Tuesday evening. So still enough time for me to get to the hotel, get checked in, go for a run, and do what I need to do, get a workout in. So we're just we're flying though. We ain't driving no more.
So you're going to fight Krzysztof Jotko, who, if you look at it in terms of recent activity, there's a lot of similarities there. Like both of you were in the middle of 3-fight losing streaks. Both were able to bounce back and pick up back-to-back wins. And both of you are heading into this fight coming off a split decision win in your last fight. Had you been aware of like the similar road you guys had been on heading into this one?
Man, I know that he was in the top 15 at one point. I really didn't know until just the other day that he had a 3-fight losing streak. I thought he had lost, 1 or 2. I know that Brad Tavares and Uriah Hall put him out. So, I figured that, he had lost 2. But I knew he won his last 2 or 3. And, confidence is a really big part of, the fight game. You may not necessarily be the best fighter in there, but as long as you think you are, you can probably do a little damage and whatnot. So, I think he's riding, winning, having a win streak like that, is super crucial for your confidence. So I'm sure he'll come in there and, try and implement his game plan and try and take me out like he's done the last 3.
How do you like this fight from like a stylistic perspective? I know you more or less focus on yourself. I mean, he does have some finishes on his record, but I think most would agree that should this fight not go the distance, you'd probably be favored in that regard if we're looking into the future. But what are your thoughts on Krzysztof as an opponent?
Man, he finds a way to win, and that's all that matters at this point. Getting that hand raised, collecting a full check, and then taking it to the house. So, he's, obviously found his niche and, got back on the winning streak and, probably looking at is he on a 2 or 3-fight winning streak? 2. So he's probably looking to be on a 3-fight winning streak.
You're a very relaxed individual in regards to this crazy fight game we love so much. Like I've talked to you so many times at this point. Like you don't talk a lot of trash. If an opinion needs to fly, you let it fly as needed. But for the most part, you approach each fight pretty much the same. Do you need to find any extra motivation for these fights? Like, is there anything that you look at to sort of add to your intensity in any way heading into May 16th?
Not really, man. The main competition is with myself. As long as I go out there and do what I'm capable of doing and performing how I know I can perform, it's going to be a short night for me. So I just got to go out there and be me.
One aspect of this event, and you mentioned it, that's really cool, is that you're going to be sharing this card with Walt Harris. He's going to headline against Alistair Overeem, and it's going to be his first fight since the tragic news of his stepdaughter surfaced. And as a father myself, I can't imagine what he has gone through over the last several months. But to be on this card with Walt, to be there with him for fight week as you guys look to advance your careers, this could be a pretty memorable night for the both of you guys. What does that mean to you?
Man, it means everything. I think the last time that him and I fought on the same card was on a local promotion here in Birmingham. I was actually an amateur. I think it was 2012 maybe, and I won and he went out. I can't remember who I fought. I know I won though, and then he went out there and knocked out Josh. I can't remember the guy's name, but he was an American top team guy. So, man, he went out there and knocked that guy out, and we're looking to repeat the similar results come May 16th.
You seem to roll with each and every punch that comes your way, but especially in these times, does it make things a lot easier having a guy like Walt, another friend or teammate on the same card with you, even if it's just to talk about other things besides fighting? Man,
I think training with Walt as he's getting ready for a fight and I'm getting ready for a fight, man, I think we're both looking really good right now. I think that Jocko's biggest asset that he has in this fight is speed, but Walt's got it dialed in, and I'm willing to take the Pepsi challenge on who has the fastest hands in the middleweight, light heavyweight, and heavyweight division, and I bet you that he would win. He's for sure, without a doubt, in the heavyweight division, he's got the fastest hands. Probably in light heavyweight and middleweight division too. I know he doesn't fight in those divisions, but my point is, man, I'm going again. Every day I'm training and sparring with a guy who, he can do everything Jocko does, and is faster than Jocko is. So, I think the hardest thing to replicate is speed. And, I've been seeing it for the last 5 months now, getting ready for this fight. So, I don't think that May 16 will hold any surprises for me.
Has he asked you about being a headliner in a UFC fight before? Like, you've been there before. He hasn't. This will be the first time he's headlined an event. Have you talked to him about, the differences of what it feels like to be in a main event as opposed to being on a main card or an undercard?
I mean, man, obviously, the main difference is the 2 extra rounds, but, back, they were supposed to headline in December. And I remember having a conversation with him, like, man, you get a little main event bonus. You get a little extra bread for being a main event. And, that was probably the more exciting thing to him than anything else I had to say. So I think at the end of the day, it's money that makes the world go around and, gets guys, ready to get in there and go fight. So, you can go collect a few checks, if you're the main event bonus. I would imagine him getting a knockout bonus or a performance bonus. So, he should be sitting pretty after this fight.
Much like that show back in the day on the regional circuit, you're going to be setting the table for Walt. How do you set this all up for him in Jacksonville on May 16th?
Man, I go out there and get a knockout, give him something to chase, a little motivation. I feel like, you go out there and sleep somebody, you're definitely in the running for that performance bonus. And, that's also something that we fight for. Because that bonus, when it hits your account, man, I'm telling you, there's not much better feeling in the world to open your account on a Monday, 8 weeks after you fought. You probably already forgot. And then boom, an extra $50,000 in there. It's I'm smiling right now. I've had a few of them. I want another one. So, I got bills to pay and kids to feed. So, I'm going out there to put in work.
Is it going to be a little weird for you fighting in an empty arena? I mean, you're so used to fighting in front of big crowds. I mean, even at the University of Alabama, like massive crowds, and to the UFC and through the regional scene, you probably still fought in front of sold out venues. Is it going to be a little strange fighting in an empty arena?
I don't think so. I got to fight under the same conditions that Christoph has to, so I can't let it affect me more than it affects him. So, my philosophy has always been like, UFC or Madison Square Garden to an empty parking lot. It doesn't matter. Put whatever's on the contract, I'll be there and I'll fight at whatever venue under whatever circumstances. So, it really doesn't even matter to me if, people are in attendance. I think it actually kind of helps the UFC a little bit and fighters, because everybody, if you want to watch sports, you have to watch UFC and you have to watch it on TV. So, everybody's going to be watching. So, you go out there and you sleep somebody. You go out there and put on a hell of a performance, and get all the recognition and everything that comes with it. So, empty. It may be empty inside, but man, there's going to be millions of people watching. So, it's all good either way.
It's a great way of looking at it. And, how do you feel about how the UFC is handling all this with all the testing and everything? I know you're going to be tested before you even get to the hotel, and then tests every day. They're setting you guys up in separate locker rooms with all the amenities that you need to make weight and get ready for the fight. How do you like this from a perspective heading into this one?
Like I said, man, I'm pretty sure I already had it. So, it's whatever. Like I said, everything that I have to do, Christoph's got to do as well. So, I think it's going to come down to who handles, the intangible things, a little bit better. And, man, I just really don't care, about, I know they're going to have to stick the thing up my nose. That's going to suck, especially because, this right one, don't know if you can see, but it's crooked. It doesn't even work. My left nostril, excuse me, doesn't even work. So, I'm down to one nostril already. So I don't know how many times they're going to be able to test me.
I know you're focused on May 16th, but you have been one of the more active fighters on the roster and in that division. So, I don't know how they're going to handle things moving forward, but with the UFC looking to fill up their schedule, if all goes well next Saturday, would you want to try and turn around quickly and get right back in there? Or are you just going to sort of take things day by day?
July would probably be more preferable because, my wife and kids and I are going on vacation to Brazil, I think on the 28th through the 11th. So, man, if you think I'm doing any physical activity after a fight, especially on vacation, I may go roll. I may go do some jits and stuff, but man, I'm not going to be out there running miles and doing hill sprints and lifting weights and stuff, so you can cancel that. I'm going to enjoy the vacation with the family. It'll be my oldest son's first time in Brazil. So, man, I don't want anything else on my mind, but, showing them a good time and, eating lots of acai and feijoada and all that other good stuff that they got down there.
And if you get that bonus, you can show them an even better time in Brazil, right?
Man, I get the bonus. Well, the bonus doesn't get here for 8 weeks after the fight. So, I won't have that to rely on. But that fight check comes in on Monday. So I'll be good to go.
I wanted to ask you about this because we found out earlier today as we record that the legendary head coach of the Miami Dolphins, the winningest head coach in NFL history, Don Shula, passed away at the age of 90. And as everyone knows by now, you played college football at the University of Alabama. And before Nick Saban took over, Don's son Mike was the head coach at Alabama and recruited you for the program. It's obviously, a very tough day for Mike and the rest of the family. But I'm wondering if you had met Don Shula at any point and how you reacted to the news from earlier today.
Man, is he really the winningest coach?
Yeah.
Ooh. I lost a bet to my.
Oh no!
I didn't know. I thought that he was just known for the undefeated season or whatnot. So I owe my son some money now. Get them fighting soon. But yeah. I never met Don Shula, but man, everybody knows his resume. And Mike Shula, his son, is actually the guy who recruited me at Alabama. So unfortunately, I never got a chance to meet Don, but I know the rest of the Shula family.
Yeah,
and, my condolences go out to them as well.
Yep, same with me. But on a positive note, here we go. We're less than 2 weeks away from the return of your boy, Eryk Anders, taking up Krzysztof Jotko. Whether you're with this return or not, sports and fights are back this Saturday. They'll keep on going, including this event on May 16th. Eryk, thank you for the time. All the best to you for the rest of training and in the fight itself on the 16th, man.
Man, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Always great catching up with the former University of Alabama football standout, Eryk Anders, ahead of his fight with Krzysztof Jotko next Saturday, May 16th in Jacksonville, Florida. That story of him and his team getting snitched on at the gym was pretty wild, but best of luck to you, boy, next Saturday night in Jacksonville. Now let's check in with the raging panda herself, Julia Avila. Not only has she been doing great things in the cage recently in her career, but she's doing even better things out of it in the fight against COVID-19. Let's get to that conversation right now with Julia Avila. All right, Mike Heck here for MMAfighting.com. We're being joined by one of the up-and-coming fighters in the UFC women's bantamweight division. She had a successful octagon debut over the summer, and despite the UFC's attempts to get her back in there, between injuries to her opponent and now a global pandemic, we haven't been able to see that sophomore appearance yet, but I wanted to check in with the raging panda, Julia Avila. Julia, how are you?
Hi, Mike. I'm doing great. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Yeah, it's been a minute, but we're gonna get into one incredible thing that you've been doing with this extra time in a couple of minutes. But from a general sense, how have you been enjoying the quarantine life in Oklahoma?
Absolutely nothing has changed for me except that I work from home now. I've been blessed to still have a job, so I'm remote working. I still train an exorbitant amount of times throughout the day. My home gym would put most, big box gyms to shame. So I'm, still working out, still keeping healthy, still training. I have I'm co-quarantining. So there's a very, very few people that I still see, and some of them are my main training partners. So things really haven't changed for me.
You see in some states, like, people are starting to lose their minds a little bit. Like, let's open things up. Like, we're all going to be okay. And then others are like, no, better safe than sorry. Like, Massachusetts is really stepping up their game right now. Now everyone has to wear masks in public places, like, all the time. So, how is Oklahoma in that sense? Is everyone just kind of dealing with everything and trying to be patient with it? Or is everyone just ready to break down the doors of their house and get outside and live normal again?
So the people that I talk to on, a semi-regular basis, that most of the gym goers for the several gyms, they're still kind of a little hesitant to go out. Many of them either have family members that are high risk. I have a very close family member that's high risk. And so we're all keeping careful. A lot of people were wearing masks. I was handing them out left and right. I had a couple left over at the post office when I was shipping, and I was like, here, do you guys have masks? Take them. So I think Oklahoma, all in all, they're ready, but they're cautiously like dipping their toe in the water.
That makes sense. And this has been an interesting last few months for you, because the last time we spoke was right after the new year, and the fight with Carol Rosa was already scheduled for April 18th in Portland before all the COVID-19 stuff started rearing its ugly head. And we find out the event was postponed. And then, like, maybe a week or two later, we find out that you're still going to fight Carol, but on May 2nd in a location somewhere on Earth, and then everything got postponed again. So as someone who really wants to get back in the cage and compete, how difficult has this all been for you as a professional fighter?
It's been crazy. And it was actually, so Portland was rescheduled from the original date in October. So
oh, that's right. Yeah, because you're supposed to fight in Singapore too, right?
Yeah. So I was scheduled to fight Carol 3 times. Contract signed and everything, and never came to fruition. So honestly, I've said this from the get-go, like, I'll fight anyone at any time. I'm ready. I think within, a reasonable camp, like a couple weeks, then I should be good to go.
So we're recording this on the night of May 1st. So tomorrow, as we speak, you were supposed to be fighting. Do you not even just look at dates on the calendar anymore?
No, I don't really have an off season anyways. I've told you this before,
Right.
I'm just constantly going. The only issue for me is that with the amount of activity that I like to do, I consume a lot calorically. so I just need those couple of weeks to make sure that everything is good, because I am a professional and I don't plan on missing weight anytime ever. So I'm always prepared.
We'll dive more into the fighting in a moment, but the main reason I wanted to have you on, and you sort of mentioned it before, is because especially in this space that we're in, it can be a very negative place. And you have been doing something very positive and incredible over the last month or so. So to sort of lay down the groundwork, a month seems like a year right now. But in March, people were fighting in the stores for toilet paper, supplies were low, and even like personal protection equipment, which is still so crucial right now. Those are really hard to come by, still is, as a matter of fact. But you decided to be part of the solution. Tell the folks, what have you been up to over the last month or so?
So over the last month, I have been making face masks. I have a sewing machine. I got it years ago. So I said this to someone else. As much as I love to destroy in the ring, I really love to create. I'm a very artsy person, and I like to just make things. So one day I saw on Facebook that a hospital had requested a face mask and asked for seamstresses. And I looked at the mask, I looked at the pattern, and I said, I can do that. I have the material, I have the stuff. And so I went ahead and I made a couple, and it was pretty fast. And then I hit up Grandma. I was like, Grandma, do you have these materials? And she said, yeah. I'm like, all right, let's make face masks. And so she started making a couple, and I blazed through them, right? I made 70 in one day. I go, hey, Grandma, do you have any more material? And she goes, yeah. You already went through all that? I said, yeah, people need these. She's like, well, how many did you do? I told her 70. She said, just take all of it. I don't even want to help anymore. So I'm just cranking through them. And I saw that people on the neighborhood app, I saw that people were charging for them. And I said, no. I will never charge for your safety, because your safety is my safety, right? So the people that were charging, I hit them up. I, direct message them, and I said, hey, I'll give you some for free. Just drive by my house and, pick them up off the porch. I have a gun. I'm not fearing for my safety. So, so I just started handing them out, and I posted on my Instagram, if anyone needs any masks. I did fundraise for my Portland fight, and I had the money, and every penny has gone towards making masks. So, and for shipping, I've hit up several military bases and made hundreds for them all across the U.S. So coast to coast, border to border. My brother lives in Brooklyn with his husband, and so I had, I sent them some. I have family in California. I have a lot of first responders that are family that are first responders. So I just started making them, and a lot of old high school friends, they're hitting me up, and I said, yeah, here, take them. How many do you want? How many do you need? What's your address? And I'll get them out as soon as I can. So I work full-time, train full-time, and, whenever I get 5 minutes here or there, I make face masks.
How many do you think you've made? I mean, it's probably hard to count each and every one that you've made, but ballparking it. How many do you think you've made so far?
Over 1,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's tough because, with everything you do with masks, take my wife, for example, she manages a very busy periodontal office in Massachusetts, and, they're deemed essential, but only in emergency situations only. But, members of the state dental board wanted all of these businesses to donate all of their masks to hospitals and other essential offices. And that's great. And we all understand why. But, what if emergencies came in and there's no masks? And what if all the restrictions got suddenly lifted? There's no masks. So now you can't see any patients. You can't even open up. So things have been pretty hairy throughout all of this. But luckily, people like yourself have gotten very creative. You like to create these things. And it's something, especially with the mask, not a lot of us thought about before. And it's something we really took for granted before all this happened, right?
Yeah. And it's one of those crafts that are really, they're getting lost, like home ec. A lot of people don't know how to cook anymore. A lot of people don't know how to change their oil. A lot of people don't know how to sew. I really think it's something that a couple of my fans, they're like, hey, you motivated me to go buy. So they Amazoned a sewing machine. They taught themselves, and they're now making face masks. So, if I can spark just a little change in a couple people, to try something new or to help out, then I've done my job.
And speaking of the fans, you've gotten a lot of support with all of this, just with people sending you different supplies to assist you with this. And these masks, they're going anywhere and everywhere. Like you said, coast to coast. If they're needed, you're finding a way to get to them. What has that meant to you to have everybody just kind of chip in and help you out here?
Oh, it's been amazing. I have so many loyal and just good fans. They're not following me because they think I'm a pretty face. They don't follow me because, I'm a good fighter. Hopefully they think I am, but they follow me because they like me as a person. And, that speaks to them. That speaks to the quality of them more than it does about me. And they've been really, really coming through and supporting and helping out. If anything, just to say thank you. That means the world to me. I manage all of my social media platforms, and so I get to read all of the comments, all of the positive and negative, and it's just been overwhelmingly positive. Just for people to see that there's hope.
Well said. What's the furthest that you've gotten a photo that one of your masks has appeared in? Is there one photo you've gotten, you'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe it's gotten this far?
Canada.
So you're leaving the country now too.
Yeah. Coast to coast, border to border, and 2 in Canada.
Wow. Is it kind of surreal once you saw the Canada pictures? You're just like, whoa, this is just wild right now.
I'm just glad that I'm making a difference.
You see, we're seeing what Conor is doing in Ireland and the news that it's made, and you're getting a lot of support from your fans with this. And, it's just incredible what both of you guys are doing. And I know you're not looking for a pat on the back. It's just something that you've been compelled to do, and you're inspiring other people to do that. And I'm going to give you a pat on the back anyways. But, what has this all meant for you? Because, you're not looking for a lot of credit here, but you're making a difference, and that still has to feel good, even though you're not looking for that kind of credit. You know what I mean?
Right. I pursued fighting just because I felt like it was the platform that I knew I could reach the most amount of people. And this was just another opportunity for me to do that. And I think the hardest, what would hurt me the most is to not be remembered. And when I die, I just want to be remembered. And I think positively. And so like I said, if I make that one difference for one person, then it's all been worth it.
So you're working full time, making masks, you're still training, you're still lifting weights, you're still busting out squats, you're getting ready in case that call does come again from the UFC brass. You're not really asking for it. You're just staying ready. And once that call comes, you're going to be ready to go as long as the time frame is appropriate. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Earlier today, on this Friday, May 1st, we saw Dana White talk to ESPN, and we saw a good chunk of the May 13th and the May 16th events get revealed. And, just kind of looking at the number of fights, there's likely to be more added on to both of those cards. And from everything I hear, May 23rd is out there, June 6th is out there. Have you been approached at all with anything at this point?
At this point, unfortunately, no. But I know a lot of other people are very hungry to get back in the cage, and a lot of other fighters need it. Again, I've been blessed to have my primary career, and so it's not a need for me to get back in that cage. It's just a want. Sooner rather than later. I'm not getting any younger, and I definitely want to make my claim in the bantam division. And I can't do that, being at home. So hopefully I get something in the near future, June maybe. But if anyone's willing to step up, I'm right here. I
know you've mentioned before you're in anywhere, anytime, like whoever it is, like I'm ready to fight. But with Carol out of the picture and a lot of the international fighters pretty much out of the picture right now, and it's still hard to even call anybody out at this point or hard to predict the future, but some opportunities could open up for you here, because if you look at some different ranking systems, you're in the top 15 in some of the sites' different rankings at 135 right now. So you could have an opportunity to step up a couple of slots. Do you even look at the rankings right now? Is there anyone that might stick out that could make sense to you, or you just don't even care at this point?
I mean, I really don't even care. I really look up to Angela Overkill. And I kind of want to be like her and just be like, hey, Dana, give me a fight. I'll be there. But, I want to fight someone that's responsible. I don't think jumping into the top 5 would be very responsible for me to do. I need to gain that ring, especially in the UFC, because it's completely different. But I need to gain that ring experience. And so, top 15, anyone really. I think I have to believe that I can beat all of them. So I do.
Well, hopefully we can see you back in there soon. But especially because it's funny, people ask me all the time, like, when's Julia Avila going to fight again? I'm like, I don't know right now. Like, nobody really knows anything. But I do want to bring this up because the last time we spoke, it's something that I remember through a lot of these interviews. You were very emotional when you spoke about your husband being deployed for the first time since you guys have been together, and it was understandably a very difficult time for you. But now he's back, and you get to spend all the time in the world with him because everyone's under quarantine right now. So how great has it been to have him back home?
It's been so amazing. He actually came back. Or the night that he came back, that very next day, they closed the borders to where he was at. And so the U.S. citizens that were there are like there for a couple of months, I think. So it was pretty scary. And I'm so, so blessed that my soldier's back. It's been really nice. He kind of reins me in. If he weren't around, I would overtrain. because that's just what I do. And so he kind of like, even today, he said, I did a conditioning round while he was sleeping. And he's like, I'm going to have to put a padlock on all the gear and stuff to keep you from doing things. But it's really nice. I'm super blessed to have him around, and super blessed to have just his knowledge and his strength around me.
Can he sew? Is he helping you make masks at all, or?
No, he watches from afar. He keeps my coffee filled and my wine glass filled. So
See, he's essential right now.
Oh yeah.
100%. Julia, always a pleasure to have you on, especially on a Friday night. First time you've joined me on the new platform here, and it's certainly not going to be the last. I think what you're doing is amazing. I think a lot of people agree with me on that. So keep it up, keep fighting the good fight, keep staying positive, because Lord knows we all need that right now. So I hope you get a fight book soon and that it actually happens this time. All the best to you, the husband, the dogs, everybody else. Thank you, Julia. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. Hey, stay clean, but fight filthy.
Kudos to Julia Avila. Really incredible stuff that she's doing to help people out during this global pandemic, this unprecedented time. And I give her a lot of credit for all that she's done, and even to the people who are helping her. And I know Julia's not doing it for the credit, but I'm going to give it to her anyways. I think it's just amazing. But a lot of fans are obviously excited to see her back competing, and she's been ready to do so since September, October. It just hasn't worked out for a number of reasons that are out of her control due to injuries and obviously a global pandemic, which no one could have really prepared for. One of the fighters I've been wanting to chat with for a long time now is Ryan Hall, the season 22 champion of The Ultimate Fighter. He's unbeaten in the UFC. He had that great win against Darren Elkins that opened up a lot of people's eyes. He's starting to rise up the ranks, but as he's spoken about in the past, he's been having a hard time getting a fight that he deems worthy based on his rankings and based on his name. I understand where he's coming from, and he finally gets one in Ricardo Lamas, and well, a pandemic strikes. So let's get to my conversation with the wizard Ryan Hall and see what he's been up to these days right now. All right, so for a little backstory, if there is one person people have wanted me to chat with over the last year or so, it would be my guest joining me right now. Not only that, but amongst the staff here at MMA Fighting, I think this confirmation may have gotten more of a pop than if I booked Conor McGregor. How about that? Happy to be joined by the wizard himself, Ryan Hall. Ryan, thank you for doing this. How are you, man?
Not too bad. Thanks so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. And now I can't wait to disappoint everyone.
That's not even possible. But first things first, how has quarantine life been treating you during this pandemic and this crazy time in the world?
Oh, man, it's, things are slow, I think, probably for everyone, I would say. Like the D.C. area is kind of interesting because life in a lot of ways hasn't changed markedly. It's just slowed down significantly. Obviously the gym is closed. Training is non-existent in any real sort of a sense. We're doing what we can to stay afloat. I've got a series of full-time employees and people that I take care of. Obviously, my wife and little boy, spending time with everybody. But it's just been kind of an interesting time. I wish, I don't know. It'd be nice. It'd be nice to be able to do other stuff, but in the grand scheme of problems, mine are pretty small.
How old is your little boy?
19 months, I think. He runs around and yells at everybody now and throws stuff, and he's a pretty entertaining little guy.
There you go. So you're home with him all the time. So it must be nice at least to get some extra time with him, probably more so than you would if you were training for a fight, maybe? Yeah,
definitely. Because, I was supposed to fight, I guess, 2 days ago in Oklahoma City with Ricardo Lamas, but obviously that didn't happen, as a result of all that's been going on. But it has definitely been a series of silver linings. I don't pay any attention to the news because it's mostly just, nonsense, the same stuff every day. And, people change their opinions on things. So it's nice to just kind of disconnect as much as possible. And all I've done is work on finishing out this half-guard instructional course that we've got going on a website. We were fortunate to kind of, be able to get the bulk of it done prior to the big portion of the virus or the fallout from the virus hitting. But I've been able to kind of put the finishing touches on that, try to get it out this week, and spending a lot of time with family. And, of course, looking forward to getting back to normal, but just doing what we can to do the best you can with what you have available.
When you say modern half guard in regards to the video, like what types of things are you going to focus on with that? Like, let's just say there was someone who maybe trained jiu-jitsu 10 years ago. They took some time off, but they're coming back because Ryan Hall's putting out this video about the modern half guard. What types of things will they learn that they may not have known 10 years ago?
Well, I can't speak to, I guess, what others might not know, but I can say that, my understanding of, I've been, I guess, black belt in jiu-jitsu for 10 years now, and been competing at a pretty good level for longer than that. And, going to the MMA world is something that really has taught me, so much about martial arts and a lot about myself and a lot about jiu-jitsu itself and how I believe that it functions. And a lot of the understandings and the leaps that I've been able to make have actually come not only from fighting and training MMA, but training in the other arts, whether it's, boxing, wrestling, judo, taekwondo, Greco-Roman, things like that, where it gives you it's almost like looking at the same picture, but putting on a bunch of different lenses. And as a result, you see different things. And, and even almost you think about language, like the way that people talk, let's say the way that you or I might explain something in English, and then the order of description is different in some languages. In other languages, there's maybe almost like metaphor instead of literalism in certain areas. And I guess what I'd say is we're all looking at or describing the same thing, but we see it differently and we see it through new eyes. And I think that that's really helped me to increase my understanding as a whole of what I believe I'm trying to get done and what I believe I'm trying to do as a jiu-jitsu practitioner and as a mixed martial arts fighter. And, I hope to be able to impart a lot of that in the course. And I can just say that, we've tried to do our best to be as comprehensive as reasonably possible. And rather than teaching you about my path, I try to teach you about what I understand as the path, I guess I would say, the learning process for how to develop your own positioning and your own understanding. And I try to give you the thought processes that I've been able to use to get some understanding, but rather than just say, hey, here are my 5 favorite moves, and if your body type is just like mine and you have the specific surrounding skills, you may be able to do it. I'm like, hey, well, this is kind of how I got to the bottom of what I'm up to now, and it may change going forward, but what do you think you should do? And kind of put the ball in the learner's court.
Are you doing all the work yourself, like you editing and putting it all together yourself, or do you have a team around you doing that?
I'm fortunate that I'm not, and I guess everyone is fortunate that I'm not, because whether you like or don't like what we're doing, it would be way worse if I edited it. It would be a dumpster fire. So basically, I'm on the instructional side and the organization side and the I guess the learning methodology side, but we have people that are doing the editing and doing the filming, and I think they do a fantastic job, and I feel lucky to be working with them.
Well, that's good that you're able to stay busy with everything going on in the world. Your fighting career, like we sort of alluded to, you've been trying to keep this momentum going. You had the 2-year layoff heading into the BJ Penn fight. You finished that fight in the first round. You come back a little under 8 months later, had that fantastic win over Darren Elkins, and you were starting to get a little more active in there, and then a pandemic strike. So, I mean, were you starting to feel like, all right, man, the train's finally starting to leave the station, and now we have to park it again?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit like that. And I'll be honest, I personally blame Khabib Nurmagomedov and Tony Ferguson, and by extension Dana White, for this. And, because obviously it's fallen through 5 times, and it's a fight that you, I, and everyone else on planet Earth that cares about fighting would love to see between, arguably the very 2 best lightweights on planet Earth, and certainly the 2 most consistently successful. But, there was the Tony was about to fight, and then you're like, oh, man, I'm just over here to talk to my buddy, and I blew my knee out walking around. You're like, what are the odds of that? I feel terrible for Tony. And then also you feel for Khabib, and then we reschedule it. And then the universe strikes you with the pandemic. If we try to schedule another one of these things, an actual asteroid is going to hit the planet. There's no question in my mind that this may be the source of all of that. And I think I don't think I'm important enough to have any sort of influence on global or cosmic events, but they may be. And I think I just might be the unfortunate, recipient of the downside of that. So, it was a shame. Wanted to compete with Lamas, wanted to compete again soon. It's been tough to really try to get opponents in there. Been turned down or effectively turned down by a lot of different people. And there's a couple guys, that have been holding up slots in the featherweight rankings that are, obviously legendary characters in their own right. Frankie Edgar, Jose Aldo, but seemingly have no interest in competing at featherweight. But they keep everyone kind of in the back end of the top 15, a little further back, which makes it a bigger ask to say, hey, how are 4 and 5 doing? What about 6 and 7? What are those guys up to if the intervening people aren't available? So it is what it is situation. Doing my best to improve and doing my best to learn. It has been frustrating to be out of touch, at least physical touch with my coaches. Obviously, Canada's closed right now, both in terms of travel and also in terms of gym operation. So getting up to see Firas isn't an option. You know, I go to see Kenny, all the people that I usually bring back and forth. That's not an option. So a little bit on my own at the minute. And, you know, we're just doing the best that we can with what we can and hope to be better for the next fight.
I want to go back to the BJ fight, because we hear stories all the time. These sort of idols become rival types of fights, or a fighter watches a certain competitor over the years. They get into the UFC and all of a sudden you're standing across the octagon from someone that you've looked up to and watched for so long. What was that night like for you, standing across from a guy like BJ Penn and then beating him?
That was surreal, man. I really, you know, really have always looked up to BJ, and he was one of my heroes as an MMA fighter. You know, he was one of the guys carrying the flag for jiu-jitsu, but he was also absolutely, you know, more than just a grappler, more than just a jiu-jitsu guy. He was the first American to win the world championships. A black belt was a phenomenal achievement, was so successful. He almost ran himself out of competition. You know, fought at heavyweight, fought Lyoto Machida at heavyweight. Like that's insane to me. That's so cool. That's amazing. He's like almost like Kazushi Sakuraba in that regard, fighting anyone and everyone. You know, he has all of the qualities that you'd want. And I guess it's obviously I would have loved if I could have magically gone back in time and gotten to compete with 2009 BJ, maybe a little bit younger. But you know, even at the time, it was still a fantastic challenge. He's a great grappler. The second that we tied up on the fence, you can always feel, as someone with a lot of experience, when you touch someone and they start to move, you go, whoa, this guy's really good. It's not just that they're strong. It's not just that they're fast. It's, wow, you can feel the subtle adjustment that they're making as you're going. And it was pretty cool to be able to feel that. And I will say this, when he almost popped me in the head, I was like, oh, crap, this is real. And, you know, BJ may be your hero, but that won't stop him from putting your teeth in the third row. So it was, I was glad to be able to get out of there without too many bumps and bruises, and to be able to pick up a win over someone that I really respect and looked up to as much as him. It was a really neat experience. And also it was, you know, managed to get Diego Sanchez way back in the day in grappling, Gray Maynard so far, you know, and now BJ Penn. It'd be nice to have the opportunity to try to compete against Jose Aldo at some point, another guy that I look up to and respect, and see if I can pick up that last loss and avenge my old coach, Kenny.
Are you surprised he dropped to 35? I mean, he actually looked pretty good. I mean, I think that was the talk of the entire Moraes fight. Like, it wasn't the fight itself, it was whether or not Jose could make the weight. He made it, and a lot of people felt that he won that fight. What did you think of him dropping to 35?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, man. I think when you said, it's like there was so much talk about, you know, how is Jose going to look, what's going on? Because I remember he was a decent-sized guy at featherweight. He's not a little guy. And, you know, obviously in the age of USADA, things are a little bit different sometimes. Not trying to point any fingers, but just, you know, that is the reality sometimes. And he made it down there. He obviously looked okay. He looked like death at the weigh-ins. And then, man, he performed great. And, you know, very arguably won that fight. I remember thinking that Marlon won it at the time, you know, but at the same time, you know, there are plenty of fights that I watch as a fan, and you're kind of caught up in it, in the expectations of what you think is meant to happen, or your feelings in the fight. And then you go back and you watch it a couple times again and you go, oh, that was what I thought it was, or I feel differently now. So, you know, he very arguably won that fight. A lot of people feel that way. So I guess I would say he performed really, really well. I think it was a little bit much that he was given the title shot, you know, even though there's no question that Jose Aldo has it in him to beat anyone at 135, anyone at 145. You know, you'd like to see a meritocracy, not just a can you get it done-ocracy. And I guess that was an interesting thing. But now to have him out of that fight as a result of the current situation, you know, you feel for Jose, because obviously, you know, he was lined up for that. But I wonder, will he stay at 35? Will he come back to 45? You know, I guess there's just a lot of things in flux, but that was a great performance. That was a heck of a fight by him, a heck of a fight by Moraes. And, yeah, it's just created such a tough situation all around, because all the top guys at 135 are so competitive with one another. Same thing at 45. They can all beat each other on a given night. And, you know, it does make it for a situation where whoever you give the title shot to, there's always going to be a little bit of sour grape somewhere, because there's no clean cut, you know, this is the only guy that can get it done at this point.
Yeah, because a lot of people seem to be opposed with Dominic Cruz getting the title shot. But for me, it was like, who else was there? I mean, Jan's looked great, but I don't think he's had that, like, signature top 3, top 5 win yet. Sterling's hurt. And then Sandhagen, again, he's a surging guy. He's the only one that would make sense. But if you're looking at it from a business perspective, you know, what's going to look better on a fight poster? What's going to sell more? Sandhagen versus Cejudo or Cruz versus Cejudo. It's going to be Cruz every single time, right?
I think you make a good point, man. I mean, I think but at the same time, I can say that I feel for guys like Jan and Corey, who's a good buddy of mine. It's funny you mentioned I remember when Corey was actually at my house training when the Korean Zombie Brian Ortega fight fell through. And I went and I immediately called and said, "Hey guys, if you need someone to fly to Korea last second, I'm your dude. Or if you have 4 other people that say no, just give me a call." And because he was actually scheduled to fight Frankie Edgar at the time, obviously, Frankie going down to 135, tough fight, in his first one against a great fighter like Corey. And I remember coming downstairs. I wake up at like noon that day, and I walk downstairs, and Corey's like sitting on the couch with this like, what the hell's going on? Look on his face. I'm like, "You all right there, buddy?" And he's like, "Yep, they gave the fight to Frankie." I'm like, "Well, huh." So they pulled Frankie out of his fight, put him in there with Zombie. I was hoping to fight Zombie. It was just an interesting thing how it all kind of played out. And then since that time, Corey hasn't had the opportunity to fight. So it is tough for guys like Corey, guys like Peter Yan. And I honestly feel similarly myself. There's plenty of people that I know for a fact that I can beat in the top, you name it, any one of them. And I'm not saying that they couldn't beat me too. Fight's a fight. But a lot of times I go, man, if I were to say, "Hey, can I fight Brian Ortega or can I fight Jose Aldo?" People say, "Well, you don't have a win that justifies that." I'm like, well, that's fair for you to say. But the reason I don't have one of the reasons I don't have a win like that, or perhaps a performance that may justify that, is because other people won't step up and I don't get the opportunity. So you look at Dominic Cruz and you say, is there anybody else on that Dominic Cruz level in the guys that you mentioned? And like you said, who's going to look like that's the fight on the fight card that I want? And is Dominic Cruz as deserving historically as anybody that we can imagine of this fight? Dang right, no question. Dominic is a champion of an athlete, champion person, has had to deal with like an unbelievable string of bad luck that, for him to come back through that is staggering. It's an unbelievable achievement in addition to everything else that he's actually physically accomplished in the ring. But so I can absolutely see, that fight, and I look forward to watching it. I'm excited to see Dom back in there. I'm excited to see that fight. But at the same time, you go, man, maybe Peter and Corey would have had the opportunity. Maybe they would be on that level, at least in our mind. And then as a result, potentially comparably deserving, at least at the minute, if they'd had more opportunity. So I guess it's tough. But like you said, fighting is sports entertainment, and how things look on a poster and the financial side of things is as much of or more of a reality than sometimes the competitive aspect. So if I were the one making the decisions and I was trying to put some dollars in the bank and also bring back one of my great champions, I would put Cruz in there too.
Yeah, and that was meant to be no disrespect to anybody, because all of them are deserving. And I think Corey Sandhagen's going to be a future world champion at some point. He's going to have that title around his waist at some point. But did they give you a reason why you weren't given the Korean Zombie fight, or did you find out what had happened once Corey had told you?
No, I guess you find out. All I did was just say I'd like to throw my hat in my name in the hat, and if you guys need a guy, because ordinarily I would only fight with a real fight camp, but then every now and then there comes an opportunity to make an asymmetric gain or an asymmetric gamble where you're like, hey, I'll be going to the other side of the world, which is a huge disadvantage. Like, that's a pain in the butt, particularly last second. I'll be doing it on, almost no fight camp. I'll be doing it on, having to cut the weight last second. But you're like, hey, this is a unique opportunity to compete against someone you respect, someone at a super high level in Korean Zombie, and even to main event. And you go, yeah, I would do that in a heartbeat. But, I just said, hey, I'm in if you guys need a guy. And, of course, I guess they'd gone a different direction by that point, or they had elected to go a different direction. And I'm obviously not privy to the discussions as to who or why for the UFC. They make the decision that they feel is right, and they've brought the company to this point, and they know what they're doing. But I still remember hearing, oh, man, well, Frankie's going to fight Zombie, and then he's going to fight Corey Sandhagen. And I was like, if there's one thing I know is not going to happen, it's that. And I'm like, because you don't fight a guy that's nicknamed Zombie, generally speaking, and that's not an ironic nickname, man. And walk out of that fight with no scratches. And if you do, it's an act of God. And Frankie's obviously an amazing fighter, but sometimes the style that he fights, he's in it. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't fight like Stephen Thompson, doesn't fight like Wonder Boy. And it's not a knock. I'm as big a Frankie fan as anybody else. But I remember thinking at the time that was probably an unrealistic thing for people to expect. To have two back-to-back fights against two people that have a reputation for chewing guys up, win, lose, or draw, and hope that you get back in there. But you never know what's going to happen, man. But I guess I just remember thinking at the time that was a little bizarre.
Your last fight was against Darren Elkins, and that fight was crazy because you got to show some different sides of you that a lot of people hadn't seen before. You knocked him down several times in that fight. He's a very durable guy, as you obviously saw in those 15 minutes. But the second round was crazy. We were seeing spinning stuff, and they were landing. You were knocking him down. Like, that opened up a lot of eyes. Like, was that one of the more important fights of your career? Because, although the striking game may have always been a big part of your repertoire and maybe nobody saw it before, everyone actually got to see it this time and everyone reacted to it in such a positive manner.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. It was really neat to get to compete against Darren. I really, really respect Darren a lot. He's a super tough guy. Again, the Damage is not an ironic nickname. This is a man who doesn't play around. And then also when you get it tattooed on your chest, you are committed, man. And I guess that was really cool because I remember the first time spinning and whacking him with the spinning kick and going like, all right. And then he just rises up. You're like, sweet baby Jesus, how is this man alive? And then he just completely carries on and, dropped him with a left hand, dropped him with another left hand. I remember being partway through the third round. You're like, I don't know if this guy's going away. And, it's just that was neat. I was really happy to be able to show the things that I've been working on because, it's funny. I feel like I've only gotten 4 fights in the UFC, and then I guess the other 3 on Ultimate Fighter. And so in the last period of years, so I guess that would be 7 fights since 2015, which is not a lot. But, I've been training mixed martial arts for a long time, and I've been taking this seriously for a long time. And when I'm off, I'm not fiddling around. I am waiting for a fight. I am waiting for really good opponents, and I'm preparing to fight the best guys. And I guess the way that the career path that I've taken to this point is like, okay, I'll fight once a year if that's what you want me to do, but I want a big step up each time. I want a serious guy that I can't fiddle around with. If I'm not significantly better in this next fight than I was against Darren Elkins, I don't expect to do well because I'm asking for, the best people available. And then if I manage to get past that guy, then I'll have to pull it off again. But I like to think that I've shown some significant improvement in each fight. And, coming into the BJ fight, I was off for 2 years. And I went up a weight class to face him. I didn't get to fight him at 45, which would have been much more comfortable for me. I guess against Artem Lobov, I was, I had a serious staph infection. I was still on antibiotics. I was really sick, and I had a torn ligament in my foot and did the fight anyway. Of course, it would never back out, but was able to overcome that. So I feel like the time off is sometimes a blessing and the opportunity to improve, but it's also a curse in that you don't really get into a rhythm. As you mentioned, you're like, okay, a fight here, then 8 months later, like, okay, and then 4 months later, okay, you kind of get into the feel of things. And maybe I don't ever really envision fighting as often as like a Neil Magny or Donald Cerrone who fight twice a weekend if they have the opportunity. But it would be nice to get into sometimes 3 a year. But at this point and this age in my career, I don't know if that's in the cards. So I will continue to just do my best to improve, and then you just say, give me the best that you have available when one of these guys is willing to sign up. And it was neat that Darren was willing to do that because there was no hesitation. I remember hearing from Sean Shelby, the matchmaker, that, we asked Darren and he said, yeah, no hesitation. I'm like, that's my kind of guy. So I really respect that.
We're talking before we hit record here, and I was telling you about how this interview came to be and how people were reaching out to me saying, like, you got to interview Ryan Hall, and you were a little thrown back by that. But, have you noticed the way that fans react to you now as opposed to maybe 3 or 4 years ago? Because, like, for a while, you were the jiu-jitsu guy off the Ultimate Fighter. People looked at you a certain way. And now, like, at least from what I see, you've gotten this, like, cult-like following. Like, you and Tony Ferguson are like the Chuck Norrises of MMA. Like, they want to see Ryan Hall fight Francis Ngannou now, and like all of these killers because
I do not want to see that happen.
They put you on this
pointed stick.
They put you on this like this pedestal. Like, it's have you noticed a change in that aspect at all?
I'll be honest, maybe I don't pay too much attention online. If I'm honest, I don't go on Twitter. I don't really, like there was a period. I remember right when the coronavirus thing happened, I started going on Twitter for information a little bit more often. Then I remember going to myself, looking at myself one day, because I actually said that out loud. Oh, I'm going to Twitter for information. I'm like, what am I, high? Like, I must have got out of my damn mind. And then I've deleted it off my phone again. And I guess I would just say that Tony Ferguson deserves all of the things that people say about him as a tough fighter. I mean, look, the win streak that he's put together, the guys that he's fought, are phenomenal. I feel like I've done well each time, and I've kind of put on like different types of unique performances, and I feel that each one of my fights to date has been dominant in its own way. And I really have been hit like that. Forget the fight sets, and that thing is, I don't know who got paid to invent that. But basically, I think I've only been hit like 7 times in my UFC career. And and I've not fought bums. I mean, I fought Artem Lobov, who's much, and people make fun of Artem and there's all the jokes, but he is a tough fighter and he is a good guy. And he was, particularly at that time, he just knocked out 3 consecutive people, 2 of them out cold on Ultimate Fighter. And, he had a great deal more experience. I ended up fighting up at 155, which I've often done. I am 155 pounds walking around. And that's not, a lot of people joke, fighting is the only sport where a man undersells his weight. But basically, I'm about 155, 160 pounds walking around, which means that most of the people that I fight are 20 pounds naturally heavier than I am. And at 55, that's Artem and I are about the same size, but at 55, that's more so. And then I fought Gray Maynard, a great fighter, tough guy coming down, tons of experience. And then BJ Penn, obviously, he's a little bit older, but he has a great deal more experience than I do. He's a bigger man naturally. I'm fighting at his weight class, and then fighting Darren Elkins, who was a top 10 guy, up until a couple fights prior to that. Super durable, super experienced, lots of great wins, managed to put on a good performance against him and get out of there without, someone nicknamed The Damage making that a big factor. So I guess it's different. I'm definitely, a different type of fighter than Tony Ferguson and maybe people like that. And I think that sometimes a lot of people undersell me, and then I think some of the other guys maybe oversell it a little bit. But I just want to try to do my best to learn and to continue to grow. And I just hope for the opportunity to fight the best people. And, I just would never mention myself in the same sentence as Tony Ferguson right now, given what he's accomplished in the UFC. I'd like to think I could do any number of different things, but the reality is that I haven't had the chance to do it yet. So I prefer to let the skills do the talking.
As you mentioned, you were scheduled to fight Ricardo Lamas this past weekend in Oklahoma City. And obviously with everything going on, that fight didn't happen. And I know Lamas did an interview recently. He said that he still wants the fight. He hopes it gets rebooked. But have you heard anything in regards to this fight being rebooked? How are you handling, your fight career with everything going on right now, looking into maybe your next fight?
Yeah, I guess I remember I saw an interview that Ricardo did where he said, Brian wanted to fight. Nobody would fight him. I stepped up to fight him, and then he backed out. I'm like, yeah, because anyone with a brain in their head realized a couple weeks ago that fight on May 2nd was never going to happen. So I guess what I've been doing, my approach to this entire thing has been family first and the people that depend on me first. And my fighting career is very important to me. It's incredibly important to me. And it honestly, it hurts a little bit to have to put it on the back burner and see maybe, I've watched a lot of good years of my career go by the wayside because of various things and not being able to fight. And it is frustrating. At the same time, I look at guys like Damian Maia, who, he was 38 when he fought Gunnar Nelson at the, in 2015, the same weekend that I fought for the Ultimate Fighter finale. I mean, and Damian's amazing. He's 42 now. If he retires from MMA, it won't be because he needs to. It'll be because he's just decided that his time is done and he's going to go do other things. So it is nice to know that, I just turned 35. I don't have much mileage and I can continue to fight, but it is frustrating and it does hurt to watch that go away no matter how it is. But I have to recognize first that I have a business and I have people that depend on me. Preparing for a fight takes a ton of focus, ton of time, and in most cases a great deal of financial commitment from me, all of which when it comes to the UFC is on the front end, which, that's irresponsible right now. I'm not rich. I'm not poor, but I'm not rich. And for me to put out, let's say 20, 25K at a time like this speculatively, I'd already put out $10,000 to get ready for that fight and then had it canceled. I'm not getting any of that money back. And now I don't regret it because I learned and I grew and I got the opportunity to train. But, MMA is a very speculative venture. I mean, you put the money out on the front end, then you fight for half your purse in many cases. And then if you win, you get your full purse. But that is deeply speculative, and I've continually bet on myself and managed to have that pan out properly. But I don't look back on any of my fights and say it was impossible to lose any of them. Every single fighter that I've fought to this point, because I've only fought tough people and I've always asked for them, has absolutely had it in them to beat me. And every single person that I fight going forward will have it in them to beat me. And as a result, there are no guarantees, and it's not a best of 10. So the better fighter doesn't win. The person who fights better on the night wins, and that could work for me and that could work against me. So I guess what I would say is if this gets rebooked, great. I respect Ricardo. Ricardo's a great fighter. I don't care if he's not ranked. I was willing to fight out of the rankings if necessary because I don't handpick my fights. I handpick my fights in the sense that I am asking for only the best people. I am not trying to dodge challenges. I'm not trying to dodge anyone who's difficult, and I'm not trying to dodge difficult style matchups. I think in many regards, Ricardo is a difficult style matchup. And I like that. I think that that's the sort of thing that makes you grow. But I guess if that fight gets rebooked, that would be great. If it doesn't, and they're able to find someone else comparably or increasingly challenging, hey, I'm in. I'm here to know that I fought when it mattered, and I stood across the cage from the people that were the best that I could at the time that I could for as long as I could. And then one day it'll be over. But that's all I can really say. And I guess we'll just look forward to getting back to regular training, getting back to a situation where everyone can put their best foot forward and the chips will fall where they will.
So if the UFC called you like in your management team tomorrow and said, hey, well, we can rebook this fight for, June 20th, would you say no to that?
Yeah, I would say no to that because my gym is still closed by law. I can't, I'm not putting my livelihood and it's not just me. If I were living by myself, me 10 years ago, I would do whatever the hell, because it would just be me. But now I have myself, my wife, my son, 5 other full-time employees, that depend on me. I'm not going to selfishly put their well-being at risk just because I want to compete. And I'm willing to stand behind that, even if it means the end of my career, which I don't say that lightly. I say that very seriously because I've worked my entire adult life to get to the point where I have the opportunity to face a Ricardo Lamas, to face a Jose Aldo. These are the people that I've watched on TV that I want to be like and that I wanted to compete against. But at the same time, it would be inappropriate for me to risk, without their consent. And even with their consent, maybe they're just being cool. I can't take that chance. The people around me, it's my responsibility as a man and as a business owner to do my best to help them. And then if and when this situation, we're able to all resolve it to one extent or another, and we're able to prepare properly and not put everyone else, mortgage everyone else at the same time, then I will always be there the same way I've always been there against the best challenges available. But I'm not willing to compromise to do it.
So it's not enough for the UFC to put events on, have the 3 fight cards and keep the train moving. You need to see restrictions banned. You need to see numbers rapidly decline. You need to see a lot of changes, right?
I guess what I would say, I'm not a virologist. I'm not a pathologist. I'm not. All I need is the ability to prepare properly and feel like I'm not putting my gym, like I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm not going against local law. I'm not doing anything irresponsible. I'm not willing to put other people at risk. Would I risk it in the coronavirus to fight? Absolutely. Come on. I mean, I'm not in a high risk group. If this punches my ticket, I'm like, well, dang, I didn't expect to win the lottery like that. But again, there's more to it than that. So I guess I wouldn't say something specific like, there's not a specific set of criteria that I need, but I would need to be able to prepare properly. And I would need to make sure that in so doing, I'm not putting the livelihood of all the people around me at risk, because it just wouldn't be responsible.
Kind of taking a different turn here, because you mentioned Tony Ferguson. Obviously, he's got a big fight with Justin Gaethje coming up on Saturday. It's just a wild fight on paper. Ferguson's great on the ground. He's excellent off his back, and Gaethje's got that wrestling pedigree, but we never really get to see it because he's so dangerous on his feet. How do you break that fight down? What are you going to be looking for from these guys?
I am this is, if you could make a fight like one of my Magic Happy Land fights, this is obviously this is no question going to be one of those. I'm a massive Gaethje fan. I'm a big fan of Tony Ferguson. It's Tony his ability in scrappiness and playing off of his back, and he's long and he's creative. And in certain regards, a little wild, it makes him such a wild card. And I mean, I still remember that there was like a picture that was going around a little while where it, just to put in perspective, like it showed the faces of all of the people that have fought Tony Ferguson in the last while. And you go, holy moly, they look like they've been in a slasher film, man. And it's not like this is not a tough group of people. And Tony had sometimes absorbed some damage as well. But I think one of the things that makes him so offensively dynamic is the fact that he is out there. You can find him. You can hit him a little bit. But at the same time, he's when he gets going, man, he's overwhelmingly offensively effective. He's dangerous from all positions. He's always attacking, always moving, obviously has the heart of a champion. So Gaethje is so similar in that regard. They just use a different set of tools and he's obviously physically different. But yeah, man, I know that Tony can wrestle pretty well himself, and it's something that doesn't often come up as at least not in an obvious sense in a lot of his fights. Same way Gaethje uses his wrestling more in reverse to stop people from stopping him from Justin Gaethje and them. But in older fights, I've seen old highlights and videos of him just launching guys. So I think he was an All-American D1, so he can definitely wrestle. I guess it's difficult to pick. MMA is such an interesting sport because there's so many different ways to win and so many different ways to lose. that it's so volatile by nature compared to, let's say, a basketball game or even a boxing match, which is relatively sterile. And I think in a lot of ways, people haven't really figured out how to fight MMA in a way that limits that volatility. And I think that's something that Floyd Mayweather has done brilliantly in boxing. And it's something that a lot of times doesn't resonate with the average fan, maybe, or even the average competitor, because they go, oh, what are you doing? You're not even fighting. And you go, well, that's kind of the idea. In certain regards, but then we watch his method and we watch his success over the years and we go, man, there's something to this Floyd guy. And you also see him, obviously, when he gets touched, when he gets in trouble, he has all the grit of an Arturo Gatti when he needs it. He just turns that on and off. So I guess this fight is unbelievable because both of these guys are there to put you away. And I really love the way Gaethje approaches the game because he doesn't say, I think a lot of people pretend to be Justin Gaethje and aren't. They're like, oh man, I'm gonna get you and I'm gonna knock you out and you could never knock me out. He doesn't say stuff like that. He says basically, he's like, oh, if you don't knock me out, you're gonna have a really rough night. But I didn't say you couldn't. I just don't think you can. We'll find out. And I think that he's as mentally tough as anybody out there, and he stands behind his words. He's an unbelievably entertaining fighter and a super skillful dude. I'm excited as a fan to see this one.
Yeah, it's going to be a great fight. It's a lot of moving parts in the UFC right now. 55 is great. 35 is great. 45 is great. That's your division. You know, we got Jeremy Stevens and Calvin Kattar fighting this weekend. That's a big one. And then you got guys, you know, coming up like Sodiq Yusuff and Shane Burgos making their way up the ladder. Zabit Magomedsharipov in the top 3 right now. Plus you got the mainstays like Holloway and Yair Rodriguez. We got a new champion in Alex Volkanovski. You know, who knows when things are going to kind of turn the corner here for you to get back in there. But how excited are you to kind of look ahead to these matchups potentially heading your way over the next couple of years?
Oh, man, there's not a single name that you mentioned there that I wouldn't love to be in the ring with. Every single one of those guys is super tough. They bring their own set of skills. They bring their own little, like, personal superpower, you know. They all have certain things that they're particularly tough with, and they're excellent fighters overall. It's been really neat to see such a smart fighter like Volkanovski make his way up the tree and do so well, not just a tough guy, not just a skilled guy, but a very intelligent guy in the way that he approaches the fight game. Obviously Holloway's a great fighter. You know, there's so many guys that I look forward to. So I'll be excited when we get the opportunity to get back in there. And I know that, that win, lose or draw, I will give everything. And we will continue to fight the best people available for as long as we're around.
Well said, man. You've given us a lot of your time, and I really appreciate that. I think I speak for everyone here I know I speak for everyone here at MMA Fighting, but I think I speak for the fans as well when I say we're excited to see you back in there whenever that is. But obviously, family comes first and all that stuff comes first. So totally understand your decision. I think there's a lot of other fighters that feel the same way you do right now. But, hopefully and selfishly, we all hope that happens sooner rather than later. But I'm glad we're able to get together and make this happen, Ryan. Really appreciate it. Anything else you want to get off your chest before we let you go?
No, just thanks so much, Mike, for having me on. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. And I guess we'll be releasing the Modern Half Guard later this week. It's at the website is ryanhallonline.com, and it's basically starting to. I never really thought that I would be making instructionals again, but there's been a pretty decent response to the 50-50 that we put out, kind of explaining some of the things that I've learned over time, some of the things that I was able to use successfully in a variety of fights, and also against obviously MMA and jiu-jitsu great BJ Penn. So I hope that people enjoy kind of what we've done with the half guard. I've always tried to do my best for everyone. I can't say obviously I know everything or that it's always going to be right, but it'll always be the best that I got at the time. So I hope that people will enjoy that. That's all I can say, and I'll look forward to getting back in the ring as soon as we can, and I just hope to put on good performances. So thank you so much, Mike, for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ryan. Take care. All the best to you.
Take care.
When I tell you that interview in my eyes just flew by, I really mean it. And I think my producer, Casey Leiden, can attest to that as well. I mean, I looked at the clock and I was like, holy moly, it's been 35 minutes. We could have gone for another hour. And I probably wouldn't even have noticed, but really interesting stuff from Ryan Hall. And this is something that's going to come up a little bit later on in the program as well. For some of these fighters who aren't competing right now, let's just get this out of the way. It's not that they're afraid of the virus or afraid of competing in the middle of a pandemic. It's about preparation. It's about getting prepared to the best of their abilities. I mean, if they can't train with their teams or go to the gym that they usually go to because it's not legal, they can't do that. Or even a lot of fighters take a trip to the PI before their fights. It's like something they typically do. And if they can't do what they normally do to get ready for a fight, especially in Ryan's case, now that he's cracked the top 15 and he's looking for the biggest fights he can get, you have to make a choice. And obviously neither are wrong, but you have to deal with it in your own way. That's the choice that Ryan made. Other fighters made different choices, and you have to respect it one way or the other. One gentleman who is going to be fighting, and will do so on Wednesday night, he's going to make his UFC debut, Ike Villanueva. He was the Fury FC light heavyweight champion. It's a very popular promotion in Texas, got a big following, mostly in the Houston area, but at 36 years of age and over 11 years in the sport, Ike Villanueva finally got the call. So here he is, the newest member of the UFC roster, Ike Villanueva. And I just want to preface this right off the bat. The audio quality is like 96% solid. Video quality, however, not fantastic. We tried a few different times to get it right, but unfortunately we just couldn't get that crystal clear connection that we always like to have. But it's still a great conversation with Ike Villanueva ahead of his Octagon debut Wednesday night against the returning Chase Sherman. Here it is. This man, Ike Villanueva, will make his Octagon debut on Wednesday, May 13th in a heavyweight matchup against the returning Chase Sherman. The Hurricane will be rolling through Jacksonville, Florida, but before he does, he's stopping by this particular program. Welcome to the UFC, Ike. How are you?
Man, it's been a dream come true, man. It's a lot of hard work, man. A lot of long nights, man. A lot of nice shedding tears, man. Just hard work, man. Blue collar type guy, man. That hard work finally paying off, man. But it's not done yet, man. It's a lot of work what you be done now.
You did it, man. I mean, we've done it.
I'm just excited. Finally got to call. Remember we talked last time, brother. It's like, man, it was big, brother. It's like, man, it's a long journey, bro. But hey, you keep pushing, you keep working, man. The hard work will pay off, and I'm hoping these younger guys, they see what I'm doing. Cause I've been down the road. I've been at those points where it's just you in the back of the locker room, Because when you're up there at the highest point in MMA, everybody's like, they love you. And you take that loss, they forget about you real quick. So I've been there, man. But now, man, it's my time, man. I'm excited for it, brother.
It's interesting you mentioned the losses and how people can kind of turn on you, because I've talked to fighters over the years and they say that is the most important lesson you can learn in the fight game is, when you're winning, everybody wants to go out and drink beers with you, but when you lose, they just stop talking to you altogether. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, man. I had plenty, man. You look at all my friends on Facebook, probably know half of them, man. When you win it, oh, man, hit the like button every time, man. This shit, you lose, you ain't heard nothing. There's people that have been hitting me up. I ain't heard from him in 2 years since I was fighting for Bellator, and all of a sudden, hey, I respect it, appreciate it, thank you, but I'll keep it short, man. I'm gonna stay loyal to my day ones, man. My fight team, my family, and that's all I need, man. My sponsors, I keep my tight circle, man. I'm more older in the fight game, so I think my time getting UFC now, it'll benefit me now because I got less distractions, man. I'm doing it right now for my family, and I got a newborn on the way in September, man. My baby Gigi. That's what I'm doing for, man. I'm excited for it.
Congratulations on that, man. So is that going to be, that's your third kid?
Yeah, that'll be our third official. My wife has two. I have two. This is our first together, man. So I'm excited, brother. This is like, man, and when this happened, it was just a blessing for both of us. And, man, then my wife's from L.A., big Kobe Bryant fan. So, we're dedicated to that name. You got to give it the name. Gigi, man. You got to love that. Gianna, Gigi, she's the next one. But that's going to be my next little that's going to be my prospect coming up. That'll be the next one.
That's amazing. So now you're in the UFC, and all the Johnny-come-latelys are coming out wanting to talk to Ike Villanueva now. Does it feel like surreal to hear those words, welcome to the UFC? Like the more you hear it, is it just like the strangest sound in the world?
Yeah, it does. But, like you said, as a fighter, you dream it, you believe it, it'll come true. But you got to keep pushing, man. But it's amazing. Man, it's like a long road, man, because I work my butt off, and I tell everybody, I'm going to the UFC, and regardless of age, man, I'm just that hard-working guys. Coach Dan Pineda, man, I love that guy to death. He's been my brother since day one. He worked my butt off to get here, man. So we're showing, man. The young guys in the gym, they're looking up to me. They're like, man, Hurricane, you did it, man. You told us. And I tell everybody, they're like, man, it's like it's meant to be because you're telling people it's going to happen, and here it is. And, man, it's just a dream come true, blessing, all glory to God, man. I'm very thankful, man.
So after the news came out, I was scrolling through social media. I saw you had done a Facebook Live earlier in the day, and you had told your friends and family that you had a really rough day at work, and then you got a call or a FaceTime from your manager, Jason House. Walk us through that day. Like, why was your day so terrible, and then what was that phone call like for you?
It was just a busy day. We had, right now during the COVID-19, we got a lot of stuff going on. we just got to be ready for everything. And so at work, there's little room for error right now because everybody's in a tight boat. So we're pushing out work, and we're lucky to be working right now at this time, man. I work for Hunting Energy Services. Jack Beck, Andrew Cousins, Vin Lee is my big bosses over there. We make sure we're on our tight game. So I'm leaving work that day. It was just, man, that was the day Texas opened up everything here. Man, it's been the COVID-19, they opened the restaurants up. And that day I get off work. I was going to plan to go pick up my wife, take her to dinner. And so after that, I'm walking to the truck, and Jason video called me. And Jason, looking at it, I was like, damn, House, he's butt down with me, bro. What's going on, right? He goes, always a text message, phone call, never a video call. So I was like, man, something's up, bro. Something is up. And I took my work boots off, and before I got started the truck, I called him. All he said is, we did it. He goes, UFC. I didn't know I was fighting Chase Sherman until about an hour later. Until he said, we're on. It's crazy because him and Benavia knew an hour before that. My coach was like, man, we don't like this. We don't care who it is. We're fighting, though. Even though it's at heavyweight, man, that's a blessing. But it was crazy because I'm on the phone with him, FaceTime, and then as soon as I hung up, I turned my truck around and I hauled ass back to work, and I see my boss in the parking lot, man. I gave him a big old hug with my boss, Jack Peck, because it's been a lot, man. Because that guy, he helped me along my way, man. He just helped me out at work and just, being that support. You always need that support fighter. Hey, man, keep pushing. We're proud of you. Everybody at Hunting, they backed me up. Because these are the guys, they had a pep rally for me before I fought Rashad Cutler. I mean, that was amazing, having that many people do that for me. And now it's like, man, we did, like, we all did it because, they're my support system. That's my family away from my house. And I'm very thankful for all of them at work. But it was just a lot of emotions. Man, then when I call my brothers, my sisters, man, they shed tears with me because they know how hard I've been working, man. Back in 2012 when I lost my father, I took 3 years off. And when I came back, this was my goal in 2015. It took a while, but hey, I got here, man. I'm just very thankful and proud.
Why did you take those 3 years off, if you don't mind me asking? I don't think we ever talked about that.
Yeah, man, just a lot of bad stuff, man. I went through the divorce back in 2011. I lost my father in 2012. And I was going through a lot of rough times, just wasn't getting the mindset, wasn't getting the great training in because I was going through too much. It just kept me away from it. I kept up with the family business. I just had a lot of stuff. I had to take care of my mom back then, and that was my main focus. So, back then I didn't step in the gym one time. I just stepped away and took care of my mom, my kids, and just focused on coaching football. That kind of was my escape back then to help me get away. And finally, after coaching all my kids up, my son, it was time to get back in there, man. I was very thankful to my nephew, Christian Tovar, man. He pushed me to get back into the gym. He said, man, you got to go fight, man. You're not done. And I'm thankful because I wasn't. I still had a lot of fight left. And it's been shown, man. Just pick up any video, pick up any fight. Check out my last two. That shows you who I really am, man. Those are UFC vets, man, so they weren't no pushovers, man.
So when you took that breaks, let's say 2012, 2013, as this train is rolling here, did you think you were coming back? Like, did you think you were going to fight again? Man, mentally, no. No, mindset, no. The only thing that saved me from coming back or will help me from coming back, oil field crash. Oil field crash about 2014, 2015. And I was able, we weren't working crazy hours no more. I was able to manage, get off 2 o'clock. And here I am, but I'm not the guy. I'm not going to a bar at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That's just what my style. I'm not doing that, man. It's finally got in contact with Benavia. I said, man, let's get it back rolling. And sure enough, man, I got back in the gym, and that was it, man. Because back then, I was out there, man. But thankfully, man, it all played out the way it did. So for those who are seeing you for the first time, you just turned 36 years of age. That's younger than I am, by the way, so I don't want to hear that you're old or anything like that. You had your first pro MMA fight in 2008, and you just kept grinding away, and you shared the cage. Like, if you go through your record, like, you fought some names: Drysdale, Justin Ledet, Trevin Giles. You finished, like you alluded to, your last 4 fights in the first round. Last 2 wins are against UFC veterans Roger Narvaez and Rashard Coulter to set you up for this opportunity. I don't think I've even asked you this before, but you had your pro debut at the end of 2008, so you probably would have been 24, 25, which is a little bit later than the average fighter has their first fight and finds the sport. But how did this MMA journey start for you?
Oh, man, it's all started, man. Back then, I walked in the Silverback Fight Club way back, like 2005, 6. That's where I met the good guys. You know, I was still working the oil field. That was my main focus. But my drive to still compete, man. That, you know, playing that's big football. You know, Texas football is everything. Played rugby. I had the drive to compete, and that's what I wanted to do. And I started seeing it on TV. And once I walked in the Silverback Fight Club, there was no turning back. That's where I met, man. Big man, Derek Lewis came out of Silverback. You got Danny Pineda, Jose Santavalles. I met Crew Bob there, man. Our late coach, Tony Roscoe, man. He passed away due to cancer. Man, he showed me what heart really is, and he pushed me. I'm thankful for that guy. And it's all a blessing. But back then, that's when I started, man. Once I got there, I thought I was this big muscle guy coming out. Danny Pineda put me in the guillotine, and he didn't let go. He was like a pit bull. Once he locked, I picked him up over my head. He would not let go. I'm like, yeah. So you could be this big knockout artist, but, man, you better learn some ground defense because I'll never forget that day. Those days, like, man, great memories, and we still laugh about that to the day. But, man, those are my brothers, man. That's like my little brother, man. So we look out for each other. I'm very thankful to have these guys still in my life after so many years.
How did Daniel and Crew Bob and all of those guys react to the news? Because I'm sure they were just, elated for you. This is so big.
Yeah, man. So Daniel's the head coach. He tells me, man. He's funny because every fight, we got the game plan, and he'll come up and let's do something here. We'll do this. And then me, I'm like, yes, sir, man. Let's do it, man. He's a little guy, 145. But I give him all the respect in the world, man, because he's my head coach. And I tell him, I said, man, whatever you need me to do, I'll do it. And he's great, man. But we shed tears, man. It was a proud moment because, hard work pays off. And same thing with Crew Bob. He knew it because, man, I still remember 14, 15 years ago, man, when you walked in the gym. And it's something for the guys here in Houston to just see, man. Just don't give up, man. Keep working because it's not always, the grass ain't always green, man. You got to go through the rough times because if you don't go through the rough times, it's good, man. When you take a loss, you're just going to fold, man. This is an MMA game, man. It happens. Just keep pushing. But, man, everybody at the gym, man, it was just an emotional time for all of us. But tears of joy, though, man. We're excited it happened.
Once you came back from your hiatus, you've just been on a tear. You've gone 8-2 since you returned. You had the loss to Trevin Giles, but the other one was a really close split decision loss in Fury FC. But that was the last time you've lost. You've just been tearing it up. You have not spent a lot of time in the cage. What do you think changed for you? Like when, what led to things really starting to click for you in there?
Man, after that, man, just pissed off, man, on fire. It's like, man, because that fight, that split decision loss, I was just living that day. Because, man, it went from being a five-minute fight, then they come and tell me in the locker room, damn Texas Commission. Oh, y'all fighting 3-3-minute rounds. I mean, just, it is at the very last minute, right when we were walking out, they said, y'all fighting 3-3s. I was like, right, 3-5-minute rounds. And just waiting, Texas Commission was livid. So that turned into damn, like a little boxing session. You just move. Yeah. And the guy, fighting 85, that's a big weight cut, so it takes time to get adjusted, But ever since then, I said I'll never do that again. I said, man, I changed. I was just a man on fire, man. I went back to the gym, regrouped. My wife Kim, man, she's on my ass. She makes sure everything's aligned, man. She makes sure I'm mentally focused, man. It's that mental toughness I need. It's just a great support system I get from my family. But man, this comeback is just, man, it's now or never. That's like I said, it's now or never, man. It's go time, man. It's finally here.
You sort of alluded to this, and I think most fighters get into the sport because they have that urge to compete and prove something to themselves. And, it gets to a point, and it's happened for you, obviously, where you start to believe, like, holy crap, maybe I can take this thing to the next level and go all the way with it. Do you remember, like, that moment for you when you're like, I truly believe that the UFC is now an option? Was it a fight, a training session? Do you remember that day?
Yeah. A couple fights. Even though that fight I had with Trevin Giles. Trevin Giles was a high prospect. I couldn't at 85. And I'm a big guy, man. Cutting 85, that's a lot of weight, bro. And it's just, man, we threw down 3 rounds, and that weight cut got me in those last 3 rounds. I believe I was up on that fight, man. It's just, we had probably the most wildest second round in LFA history. Everybody knew us after that. But when I came back and I was like, okay, regroup, I went and fought Roger Nevice. And I said, bring me these UFC vets. I went to his hometown. Like I said, I went to California to train with some badasses out there, man. They showed me the number of love, but they showed me the ropes, man. helped me motivate me to come back and take care of business. But I went to Corpus Christi, and when I knocked out Roger in 30 seconds, it was 28. I looked at around. I looked at the promoter. I'm like, this is it. This is those UFC guys. I was like, man, these are those guys that are in front of me, man. And that's all it took. It was okay. It's on. Then that same night, Rashad Cutler came in the cage, and he's like, man, I'm next. No second thoughts, no bagging. I'll see you soon. That's what it was, man. It was just let's go, line them up, man. It's like one after another, and that's it. Same thing happened with Rashad Cutler, man. That's a great dude, man. He's a beast, man. Him and Chase, they fought, man. That was a rumble, man. I like that. But yeah, same thing happened to him. But I'll be long here, man. So I would say that Roger Narvaez fight, that was a fight that really pushed me and had everybody believing in Texas, man. He's coming for the UFC.
After the Coulter win, and anyone who follows you on social media can attest to this, you were doing everything you could to get noticed. You wanted that opportunity. You wanted that shot. And you talked about having some long nights and having some doubts. You know, what were some of those nights like for you? I mean, it has to be tough because you really, like, you've earned your stripes. Like, you had the winning streak. You've had the credentials to this point, you know, but for some reason that phone wasn't ringing. What were those nights like for you?
Man, it was tough, man. I had lonely nights in the gym, lonely nights downtown at Krubada's place, and just the drive home is like, man, what else is left? What else do I got to do? And that's like the devil in disguise. He's trying to break you, trying to fool you somewhere else. He's like, man, it ain't going to happen. Well, my wife said, man, be patient, baby, be patient. We're family, man. I'm a hardworking guy. I got to take care of my family. So I'm like, man, my patience was running out. She was, be patient. And I was like, man, I'll be laid up at night. And 1 in the morning just waking up. Is this going to happen? Then I waited all January. I said, man, give me a last-minute phone call. Man, come on from the priority card. It didn't happen. I'm like, man, because we tried hard to get on that card. And that night, I went to the UFC show, man. Eric Garcia Fury Fighting Championships. They hosted me out there. We had a great time. At the party, I walked up to McMahon. You know, a lot of guys wouldn't. And I walked up. I said, I just want to know. And I asked McMahon, who do I have to beat to get in the UFC? Who else is left? You give me a name. And he told me, like, you're doing great. He goes, it's your age. It's hard. It's just your age right now. I was okay. So it's kind of like a little dagger, but a little bit more fire to fuel me, to keep pushing. So I left that same after party. It was probably 2 in the morning. I'm in the Uber. I text every promoter around. I said, you find me the best prospect. Anybody on their radar, you send them to me. I said, I'll line them up next. And that was our main goal. We were getting ready for that. But this COVID-19 happened, and now, man, I got the call, man. But Jason House did send us a message, hey, man, y'all stay ready because it could happen. But after that California show got canceled, man, our doubts were like, man, we don't think this is going to happen. And we actually took like 10 days off from the gym. And it was like, man, and finally, hey, man, this happened. And I'm thankful it did because it's time, baby.
So after, you know, you get over the initial word that you're in the UFC, you finally realize you're fighting Chase Sherman. And, you know, you talked about the fight with Coulter, which is just such a wild bananas fight. I'll give you all who are watching right now a little task. Yeah. If you haven't watched that fight, I highly recommend you go watch it. It's incredible. But, you know, he's just got that kill or be killed mentality. You know, he didn't have a great run in the UFC the first time around, but he bounced back with some wins, with island fights, 3 first-round finishes, became the bare knuckle FC heavyweight champion. You know, when you finally realized that you're fighting Chase Sherman, how did you react to that?
Oh, no, man. It was crazy. You know who called me? It was Rashad Cutler. He called me. He goes, man. And that's I take respect to that, man. He reached out to me. He goes, man. He goes, that's a fight for you, man. He shared some knowledge with me. Well, Rashad, man, not Rashad, Chase. Yeah, man, much problem to him, man. He's a vet, and he's a tough guy. If I did bare knuckles, I can hang with the best over there. If I did that, if I did knuckle guys, I don't in MMA. I'm just something that's not my style. If I'm gonna get a bar fight, that's gonna get in a bar fight. So that's what they're paying over there, bare knuckles. Might as well just go fight for Reek. And so I did, man. So right now, it's like, man, it's a great matchup. It's the fans are gonna win this fight, and it's gonna be lovely. I mean, can he? Is it gonna be a rumble like the Rashad fight? Hey, find out May 13th because they all rumble. I'm open to any rumble that comes, but hey, I'm the same mentality. Meet me in the cage, kill or be killed, man. It's I got all Texas on my back, my Hispanic community, Puerto Chicano. Man, if we don't die, man, we're going out fighting. So I'm excited for it, man.
I know it's your first fight for the UFC. You're focused on May 13th, but you talked about how your place of work has been so supportive of you over the years. They've thrown parties for you. They've thrown pep rallies for you and all this stuff. Do you see yourself still working there full time and still fighting, or do you think things might change?
We talked about it. I'm not leaving these guys, man, because not many companies will stay by you through this, man, because they say, okay, you choose one. These guys have been, man, open to it. And before I even came back getting started fighting, I went straight to the big boss and told them. I said, will you support this? And they're like, man, we're all for it. And when I got the phone call and I asked them, I said, man, I need to take 2 weeks off. Go ahead. Just go. Don't even worry about nothing. Just go. And they called me Saturday morning and gave me all the blessings. Man, just keep going. And they were texting me throughout the day. But I'm just very thankful. I'll never leave these guys, man. That's family, man. They'll always support me whenever I need to go train. I'm pretty sure they'll let me do whatever I need to do. But Hunting Energy Services, man, they're loyal to me, so I wouldn't do that, man.
Got a little bump. I got someone working on the roof right now, and they chose right now to come work on the roof. But a couple more things.
I got to ask you, brother. Where's the I don't see the Patriots sign, bro. Was you on the Patriots? Where's it at?
We're in the we're in the process of moving from Command Center 1 to Command Center 2. So we've left one picture on the wall for some sort of ambiance. Autographed Ali and Larry Holmes from Ali's last fight.
Yeah. I actually met Larry Holmes when I was a kid. That dude's a monster, man. That's awesome, bro.
That's crazy. But now you get to try to make some history in your own right. May 13th, 2020, Ike Villanueva versus Chase Sherman in Jacksonville, Florida on ESPN+. What is this headline going to read when it's over, Ike?
Ooh. Oh, man, that's all I just say, man. The hurricane has landed. And that's all I wanted to say because, man, I see it in my head. It's a vision. I just know, man, you vision it, you believe it could happen. My mind's going forward, man. I said, hurricane's coming, man. Hurricane warning in full effect because May 13th, I'm coming, man. Heavyweight, light heavyweight, don't matter. I'm still the same fighter, man. The weight's just out the window. And thank you to everybody, but just for everybody back home here in Houston, everybody in Texas, all my family, man. This is big. And I ran the sports agency, Flawless Fight Club. It's go time, man. I'm ready.
What a great story that is. Ike Villanueva, the newest member of the UFC roster, taking on Chase Sherman on Wednesday night in Jacksonville, Florida. All the best to him as he makes his promotional debut. And apologies for the video quality there. We did everything we could. That's just what we got, and it is what it is. I enjoy the conversation nonetheless as we head to our final guest of this loaded edition of What the Heck. Let us check in with Michael Chiesa, the Maverick himself. We shot the breeze about a whole bunch of different things, how he's handling things in this pandemic, how a new rivalry has found his fighting career. All respectful, by the way. If you're looking for Michael Chiesa to talk trash, that is not going to happen. But we broke down some of the big fights on Saturday night as well at UFC 249. Lot to discuss. Here it is with Michael Chiesa. All right, we move ahead to one of our favorites here on MMAfighting.com. A few weeks back, you may have caught him on the A-Side live chat. He was educating us in all things Sasquatch. It was pretty amazing. Let us check in with the number 8 welterweight contender in the world, Michael Chiesa, rocking just an outstanding mustache. How are you, man?
Doing good. It's good to be here. I think I'm using the same cup I was on the A-Side. So it's kind of fun. What a coincidence. So
we got that good juju going right off the bat. So I'm starting to lose my mind here with quarantine life. Like, luckily I'm in the middle of a house renovation. So we have a lot of things keeping us busy. And obviously the MMA news cycle hasn't slowed down at all. But, how is quarantine life for you at this point?
It's been okay. It's obviously it's starting to wear on me a little bit. Fortunately, I get along with my fiance real well. So we've been spending a lot of time together. She's a real estate agent, so things haven't totally slowed down for her, but she's at home a lot with me as well. So, but it's kind of wearing on me. I'm ready to go back to normal life, and I think we all are. So that's obviously not out of the ordinary for anybody to feel that way. But we're getting house projects done around here. Actually, if it wasn't pissing rain today, I'd probably be out starting to build a new fence. That's kind of the direction I'm going. That's my next big project, I think. So, other than that, man, we're getting by. But yeah, I'm ready for some normal life.
I bet. I know you're in Washington State right now. The governor's trying to phase things out step by step. But one thing that caught a lot of people's attention is about a week or so ago, a little over a week ago, you posted to your Instagram and you sort of just put your feelings out there about the fight game and where things are at right now. Like, you didn't put a timeline on anything, but you essentially said, I'm not fighting unless I can be at my absolute best, because the resources just aren't necessarily there for you to be at your absolute best. So you're going to wait it out until they are. Was there anything specific that inspired that post? Where a lot of people just hitting you up and like, when are you fighting again, man?
Yeah, it sucks not having an answer. This is the first time in my whole career I don't have an answer to that question, where it's like, if I'm coming off an injury, it's like, well, I kind of know when I'm coming back. Or if it's like, oh, we're waiting for certain fights to happen. You always have a time frame. The tough thing for me, Mike, is this is usually this time of year, I'm in training camp. If you look back, 2017, I fought Kevin Lee at the end of June. 2018, I fought Pettis in July. 2019, I fought Diego Sanchez in July. So it's like, this is the time when I'm usually transitioning into a training camp, and it's not happening right now. And, fortunately for me, I'm able to get some training in still. I'm still working with Sam Cecilia. I'm still working with Rick Little. We're getting a few practices in a week, just because, we're in the process of building a big gym. So we kind of have like a secret location where we train. But other than that, my jiu-jitsu gyms are closed. The boxing gyms are closed. All the places I do all my strength conditioning, they're closed. And it's one of those things where I know that there's guys out there that they're making do with what they got and they're taking fights. And I respect that a lot. You know what I mean? I really do. Me, I don't have the headspace for that. I've gotten to a certain point at welterweight, again, getting back in the top 10 by doing things a certain way. And I'm not going to go into my next fight without having the same pieces in play that I did for my last 3 fights. I have a winning formula right now, and I don't want to get away from that and lose my spot and rush coming back. And it's not that I don't want to fight. I want to fight. Trust me. I just watched the Gilbert Burns fight get away from me, and that's the fight I really wanted. You know what I mean? But it's one of those things, man. Like, I don't have some of the resources that these guys do. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to take that chance. It's not just about losing my spot. It's also about my health. In order for me, I'm not trying to downplay myself or my skills, but a lot of times the way I beat these guys is because I show up at my absolute best. And if you don't show up at your absolute best, if you're just a little bit behind me, I'm going to beat you. You know what I mean? There's a reason why I'm always an underdog. I'm not a betting favorite. I'm always kind of like, it doesn't matter who you match me up with in the top 10, I'm going to be an underdog. But there's a reason why I win, and that's because I have these long training camps. I'm ready for every single specific thing, to where if a guy is not on by just this much, I'm going to beat him. So, it goes back to health and things like that. So I think that my contingency plan, honestly, with Washington extending these guidelines, is I'm just going to wait for the PI to open. And when it does, I'm just going to ship myself down there for a couple weeks. And then I can at least have some headspace and know, like, at least I have my strength conditioning. I know there will be some bodies down there. I know John Wood's down there. Maybe I'll bring a couple guys from home with me. Maybe I'll bring Rick Little with me. Who knows? You know what I mean? But that's kind of my contingency plan right now. So, I mean, that's basically what I got to work with, man. It's just a trying time, and I commend these guys that are able to make that walk without having the regular preparations that they normally do. But I just don't think that's a risk I'm willing to take right now.
And I think it's commendable on your end as well, because, we have seen other fighters make that same decision with a lot of these things in play. Wonder Boy was a guy I spoke to a few weeks ago. He was with that. He has the same mentality. Ryan Hall was on the show this week, said essentially the same thing. Like, my gym's not open. Like, how can I adequately prepare for a fight? It's just a weird time we're in, like you said, like, especially in this sport, because while most sports have postponed everything for a while, the UFC is just like, nope, we're going to move forward, and that's going to kick off this weekend. How did you react to it all initially when Dana White started saying, I don't care what everybody else is doing, we're doing this thing?
You know what? That's awesome. Good for Dana. The thing is one thing that's different about our sports league than others is we get paid when we fight. You know what I mean? And so Dana's trying to keep these guys employed and keep them paid. And I know a lot of people are going to gripe about, like, oh, well, there's no stimulus checks or this or that. Well, guess what? This is different. This is fighting. This isn't like any other professional sports league or any other sport. So he's doing his job, and he's keeping these guys employed. Sorry, my dog's about to bark at me. I got to throw his toy. Get out of here. So good for him. You know what I mean? These guys need to fight. These guys got to make a living. You know what I mean? and he's given them the opportunity to do that. And that's probably a lot of the guys that probably are fighting. There's a lot of the guys that are like, shit, I can't wait around. There's guys that got families to feed and businesses outside of fighting that they got to keep going. So fighting's a top priority for them right now. So yeah, good for Dana. He's doing his thing. That's what he does best. He makes shit happen. I think the biggest mistake that anybody in the world made is telling him he can't do something. I think that he get the fights going no matter what. I mean, I think he was highly motivated to be the first guy out front, and he wanted to be the guy to be the front runner for all the sports leagues. So I think he already had that in his mind already. But I think the fact that they started saying, no, you can't do this and you won't be able to. He's like, all right, screw you. Watch this. Now I'm gonna buy an island. Now I'm gonna do. So I think that was a catalyst for a lot of the actions we've seen out of him in the last couple of months, and that's awesome. That's what makes Dana so great.
You mentioned Gilbert Burns. He was on the show a couple weeks ago because that guy is an absolute madman. He would fight every 3 days if he could. But he mentioned that he did speak to you about possibly fighting, and you told him essentially, look, man, I want to fight you, but I can't train. I'm not fighting right now. And he could not have respected that anymore. And now it looks like he's going to fight Tyron Woodley on May 23rd. You sort of prefaced this, but is it a little tough sitting back and seeing a fight like that materialize when you could very well be in that discussion?
Dude, it is. It is a tough thing, but I think that the fight can still be there once him and Woodley get done doing their thing. I think Gilbert Burns is going to become my greatest rival. You know what I mean? Because we speak regularly. We both have a certain amount of respect for each other. And I flat out told him, I'm like, dude, I want nothing more than to compete against you. I think that that's my best challenge right now is I look at his skill set, and that's the guy that's going to give me the most problems. And it's like, you know what? And you pair that with the fact that I have a ton of respect for the guy, and I think the world of him. It's like, there's nothing to lose. Let's just go have fun, And I pretty much told him, like, dude, I'm not going to go fight the best jiu-jitsu practitioner at welterweight without being able to go train at my jiu-jitsu academy. Like, that is like, if you're going into an MMA fight and you have a revolver and you have 6 bullets, that's like pulling 2 bullets out and only being able to go in there with 4. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm not trying to go. I'm trying to have as many bullets as I can going into a gunfight. You know what I mean? And just going to fight Gilbert Burns while not training jiu-jitsu, it might be. I mean, that's just stupid. So it's like that's kind of what I told him. Like, man, I can't. I want to fight you bad, but I just would be not. I'm not doing myself any favors if I can't train jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? I'm not a black belt world champion like he is. I'm a blue belt technically. So it's like it is what it is, man. But I'm pulling for him against Tyron, and I think that no matter what, him and I are on a collision course. We're going to fight someday. It's destined to be, you know what I mean? But until then, I just got to sit back as a fan, and I'm hoping he wins, man. I definitely am hoping he beats Woodley. That would be huge, man. That'd be a big feather in his cap.
For sure. One thing I've noticed since I've come over to MMA fighting is that there are a lot of fans out there that follow the site, and their main purpose is just to hammer everybody that they can. Like, it doesn't matter who it is. They'll just hammer them. And there are some fighters who get it more than others. But Tyron Woodley may get it more than anybody I've ever seen. Like, this guy is a former champion. He's found success outside of the cage. He's a family man. Like, all the things you would, like, respect a fighter for. But for some reason, he just gets crushed all the time. Like, why do you think that is?
Well, I think that, that is tough to say. I think I respect Tyron. He's a good guy. I think that he kind of plays the victim card a lot, and I think that doesn't really do him any favors. I know the rap thing, he gets picked on about the rap thing, especially the recent little clip that came out that Gilbert Burns has just been throwing out there a ton, that falling in that of love thing that he's, oh man. That doesn't do him any favors. You know what I mean? That's just not, that doesn't help his case. But it's tough to say, you know what I mean? I will say this with all due respect to him. Sometimes I feel like I'm surprised he took the Burns fight, because a lot of times I feel like it's like the Leon fight didn't happen. And it's like, instead of addressing Leon, you're calling out Izzy and things that are kind of like out of your weight class. It's kind of like, well, you're not addressing the things that are right in front of you. You know what I mean? I think that can be frustrating for the fans when it's like, instead of addressing, he's in a situation where he's got to fight a Burns. He's got to fight a Leon, but he's not acknowledging it. And it's like, well, I'm going to try to fight Izzy, or I'm going to try to get another fight with Usman, and I respect that. He's one of the best welterweight champions we've had of all time, and he probably feels he's entitled to those big fights. But the fact of the matter is, when you lose, you got to get back on the horse and jump back in there somehow. And you're not always going to be able to do that with an immediate rematch. You know what I mean? So I think maybe some fans get some frustration from him in that sense, but who knows? I think maybe it's just the rap thing. I think people haven't fully absorbed that yet.
Yeah, I'm a terrible rapper myself, so I'm not here to pass judgment. But I can't believe the Covington fight still hasn't happened yet. Like, that fight is so big. It just, for some reason, they can't get it together. I don't know why.
That's the fight that needs to happen. And I have a little suspicion. I got a little something in my head that's kind of got me thinking. All of a sudden, we have no Usman Masvidal. To my understanding, from what I'm reading in the news, it sounds like the Usman Masvidal is not happening. And now all of a sudden they're talking about a Masvidal Conor McGregor fight. For some reason, that's in the last 3 days, that's kind of become a little bit of a rumor. So maybe they're going to do, in my little thing in my head's telling me that maybe it's going to be Covington versus Usman rematch. You know what I mean? Because why all of a sudden is Usman Masvidal not a real thing? Sorry, my dogs are more pestering than children. Yeah. They're serious. They're just like, the second I have to do anything that doesn't involve them, they're just all over my shit. There we go. But yeah, that's kind of like my little theories. I really think that now all of a sudden with it's sounding like there's going to be no Usman versus Masvidal. I think that they're going to do the immediate rematch with Covington, because why would they not do Woodley versus Covington first? That's a huge fight. No offense to Burns. Burns is my guy. That's my boy, but that Covington versus Woodley's a way bigger fight but I'm glad I went to Burns. I'd rather have it go to Burns. Good for him. Let him get the win. And let's start changing that top five. Let's start changing the landscape of the landscape of 15 through 6 is changing a lot. We could use some movement in the top 5, so yeah, go Burns.
Yeah, that's 170 has just been so interesting for so long. So Burns could be a big part of the changing of the guard. But
yeah,
that is on May 23rd. Fight week is right now. UFC 249 coming up on Saturday. And considering what is going on in the world, this is a really good card. Like Cerrone and Pettis fighting on the prelims. Like, that's how good this card is. And I'm curious about your take on that fight, because you've shared the cage with Pettis before. He's coming off a couple of losses. He was submitted for the first time in his career in his last fight. And Donald Cerrone has just fought straight killers and never hesitates to say yes to anybody. And it's a rematch from 7 or so years ago. I'm sure Cerrone, even though he won't say it, got a little extra fire in his belly to try to get one back. But what do you think Cowboy has to do, in your opinion, to avoid what happened in their first fight?
Don't go backwards. That's the biggest thing when you fight Anthony Pettis. And easier said than done. The one thing about Anthony that I underestimated is when you stand across from the guy, it's one thing to walk him down, but he has this, like, the way his stance is and the way he looks in front of you, he is just like, his body is locked in. He's really twitchy. He makes these really small movements that can draw you into, it's not even like they're feints or feints. It's just, he's such a fast twitch striker that just the way his motion is and his stance, sometimes it can trigger you to attack, or sometimes it can trigger you to retreat, because you never know what the guy's going to do. He could run off the fence and freaking kick you. He might jump off the fence and Superman punch you. You never know what he's going to do. So the key for Cowboy, and I think one thing that he has going for him is I think bringing John Wood in was a great asset for this camp. I trained a lot with John Wood before I fought Pettis, and I had my success until I just ran out of steam. John Wood did a good job. He does a good job of getting fighters to put pressure on people. And so I think him working with John is going to help him with applying pressure. I think the Cowboy, whoever wins this fight, is going to be the guy that goes forward and doesn't retreat. You know what I mean? Because that's kind of the tale for both guys. I mean, if you look at both guys, if you were to get matched up with them and you're breaking down film, one thing that's always going to be at the top of the list is like, okay, get them on their heels. You know what I mean? So it's going to be whichever guy can get going forward first. I think that's going to be the guy that wins. And I think it'll be a fun fight. I can't believe it's a prelim. I mean, that's the striker's delight right there. That could steal the show. And that's a good contingency plan too, because if something goes south, even though they're fighting at 170, if something goes south, you got, in the main event, you got one of those guys could fill in for that main event spot, just in case something happens. I think it would have been smarter for them, for the UFC, if they would have had Pettis and Cerrone fight at 55, just in case something happens in that main event and they could throw one of those guys in. But they're fighting at 70, and I don't blame them. I could never fight. If I was going into a fight right now during this coronavirus pandemic, there is no way in hell I would ever be making the extra weight class down. That would be a nightmare. So I don't blame them for fighting at 70.
Yeah, there's a few of those fights. Brian Kelleher's fighting Hunter Azure at 145. Kelleher's like so fired up about that the quarantine weight class is what he calls it. So I think you're going to see that a lot more over this next month or so.
I know the UFC isn't too stoked on it. They're not big on and I don't blame them. You know what I mean? Yeah, I know they're not too stoked on it. Not him per se. Not him. I'm not picking on Brian. I'm just saying they're not stoked on the weight classes. Yeah.
Yeah, they're probably just sick of him being like, all right, fine, stop telling us you want to fight. We'll just put you on the card. You want to fight at 40? Fine. 45 it is. Cejudo versus Cruz for the bantamweight title.
A good one.
Love this fight, man. There was some trash talk back and forth on the conference call earlier this week. The big story here, as it's been for a few different fights for Cruz, it's the long layoff. It's been over 3 years since the Garbrandt fight. Ronda Rousey has fought since then. I think by the time this fight happens, Cowboy will have fought 12 or 13 times before Cruz walks to the cage since then. But as you've seen, Cruz comes through these layoffs and has been very successful. And Cejudo, meanwhile, has looked spectacular. Wins over DJ, TJ, Marlon Moraes' last 3. Very fascinating fight. Probably the storyline of the card, in my opinion. What say you? What do you think of that fight?
Well, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. If there's anybody that can come back off a long layoff and win, it's going to be Dominic Cruz. And one thing Dominic has that these guys don't is the way he moves and his footwork. And that can kind of draw, like if you watch how he fought TJ Dillashaw, his movement can draw guys into missing a lot of strikes. And he's one of the few guys in the UFC that can win off of defense. You don't really see that in mixed martial arts. You see that in boxing. You see guys in boxing win fights with defense, making guys miss and blocking and countering and things like that. I feel like Dominic's like the only guy, just off the top of my head, I can think of that wins fights off defense. So if he can do that, if he can get Cejudo missing and he can, do his bull versus matador type of stuff, he has a really legit chance to win this fight. You know what I mean? And if there's anybody who can do it, it's Dominic Cruz. I think that people lose sight of the fact that, yeah, it's unfortunate. He's probably been the most cursed guy. And I know he doesn't like to say curse because he's so mentally tough. He does not want sympathy from anybody. If you ever talk to the guy, he's like, what's the curse? It's just life challenged me to overcome these things. Like, he has such a strong mindset, and that's going to benefit him in this fight. He's just going against the Triple C, though. I mean, this is like one of the best, and a lot of people would hate that I say this, but I mean, he really is one of the best combat sport athletes of all time. I might be biased because I'm a wrestler. But, Dominic Cruz has a legit chance to win this fight. You know what I mean? And I think that it's going to play out. I think no matter what, it's going to go to a decision. And that's risky business for Cejudo, in my opinion. I mean, that's, unless you can blow Dominic out like Cody Garbrandt did, it's going to be it's tough to win a decision against Dominic. And, we'll see what happens. I mean, if Cejudo wants to win this fight, he has to make Dominic lead the dance. You make him lead the dance. You know what I mean? That's one thing Cody did well. You make Dominic lead and you counter him. You know what I mean? If you can get Dominic to lead, you have a better chance at winning a fight. So we'll see how that one pans out, dude. That's going to be interesting. And then before we get to the main event, we all know how the main event's going to go. Pure violence. That's what we're getting. Violence from bell to bell. I don't think it goes past 2 rounds.
Yeah, I have to say, being on that conference call earlier this week, you have Cruz and Cejudo going back and forth, just like jaw-jacking at each other. And then you have Ferguson and Gaethje on the call. And these two were just so fired up. Like, there's no trash talk at all. They were just like, yeah, buddy. It was like almost like they were high-fiving each other on the phone. I got goosebumps after listening to them without a single word of trash talk spewed amongst either of those guys. Like, this is so great. Like, I love when we have fights like this that you don't need insults, you don't need trash talk. People are just excited for it just because it's the fight. Like, how rare is this?
It is really rare. And, that's more, you don't really get that out of the fans. Unfortunately, I love the fans. They are the beating heart of this sport. They're the reason why. They're a big part of the reason why we're able to make a living doing this. But for some reason, the fans aren't a fan of good sportsmanship. They love the trash talk and the belittling. But I feel like it's the journalists and the fighters and the people that are much more involved in the sport. It's a breath of fresh air for us. You know what I mean? And I love it. And how could these guys have any lack of respect for each other when they're both so common? You know what I mean? That stylistically, they're not very similar, but their approach to fighting is very much the same. It's just pure violence going forward, the ability to take a shot and break guys with their durability. And they share a lot of common ground in the way that they fight, not stylistically, but just their the art of their fighting, the art of their toughness and violence and just everything about it, and both of them are wrestlers. There's common ground in those types of aspects. But it's awesome. It's just going to be a fun fight. They're going to be high-fiving. They're going to be bleeding all over each other. They're going to be freaking, Ferguson's going to get an elbow in on the guard, but Gaethje's going to Cobra Claw, grab him by the head and get him with those nice short uppercuts. It's just going to be crazy. You know what I mean? And who knows what to expect. The one thing I do know is it's not going the distance. If that fight goes the distance, I bet you Ferguson will have been dropped probably like 6 times, and Gaethje will probably have like 70 stitches. He'll probably need 70 stitches to sew his face back up if they go 5 rounds. I think it's of their best interest to not go 5 rounds. I think it's of their best interest to try to put each other away early, because if those guys fight each other for 25 minutes, they might not come out the same as they did before. They might come out of that octagon changed for the rest of their life. You know what I mean? Who knows? There could be a lot of crazy shit happening in those 25 minutes, but hopefully it's 2. So I look like Nostradamus. 2 rounds, less than 2.
This will be out there for the world to see. A couple more things. Speaking of violence, your idea for Fight Island, pretty fascinating. For those who didn't see it, what should happen on Fight Island if you had the book and the pencil and the power?
What should happen on Fight Island? I think it should be a reality show, honestly. I think if they were to do anything, I'm not just saying that as a joke. I really think that Fight Island is the perfect recipe to do some type of mixed martial arts reality show. Whether it's some type of Ultimate Fighter spinoff or something, that's the perfect layout. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be like out of just a new little sprinkle, a new little flavor. It's like, do an Ultimate Fighter again, but do it on Fight Island, or find some other way to make a reality show that involves live fights. You know what I mean? Or even if they're pre-taped or something. I think there's more you could do than just put on regular fights there for the international fighters. I think that you could really spice things up with some different types of shows. We love watching live fights. That's what's most important to us. That's what this is all about. But with so much free space with no sports going on, why would you not try to film some type of show right now? You know what I mean? There's nothing else going on. You're already putting on live fights. So you would just be packing on bonus points essentially if you could figure out some type of show you could film on the island and turn it around and edit it and get it on air quick. You know what I mean? We'll see what happens. Maybe Dana will hear this and he'll take up my idea.
Ultimate Fighter with soccer kicks.
Ultimate Fighter Fight Island. I better be a freaking coach. I swear. I better be a coach. Not just because I want to be on Fight Island, but Mike, I won the longest running season of the Ultimate Fighter. 13 weeks. 13 weeks. I know how to coach a season. If they come out with the Ultimate Fighter, it would be criminal not to have me as a coach. At least at some point. At some point I got to be a coach on the Ultimate Fighter.
I would agree with that. And last thing before we let you go, and I cannot believe we're going to have this conversation right now. I have to say, how dare you say that Topanga was a bigger heartthrob than Kelly Kapowski? That is erroneous, Michael Chiesa. That is erroneous. You're 32, so you're a youngster compared to me. I got you by a few years, and I could say that when I was a kid, Saved by the Bell was on multiple times a day on multiple different channels. You could not avoid Saved by the Bell even if you wanted to. And to me, Kelly Kapowski is the gold standard. She gets some demerits because she cheated on Zach Morris a couple times, but she was freaking royalty, Mike.
You said it right there. She cheated. She's a cheat. She's a cheater. Topanga's a saint. She's a great, decent woman. And you know what? with all this debate that I have started about Topanga and Kelly Kapowski or whatever, what is it, Kapowski? We need to reach out to both of them, and we need to get them on some type of interview where we can do some type of debate, like get them side by side, get a panel of judges to ask some questions, maybe you, me, Luke Thomas. Maybe we got to start getting them involved and get, maybe they need to debate for themselves, because obviously it's a hot topic in the mixed martial arts community right now. And maybe we need to get them involved so they can plead their case. You know what I mean? I'm a taken man. But,
Me too. Right here.
But we all want to. That'd be great if let's see them debate about it. Maybe that could be a Fight Island matchup. Maybe Topanga and Kelly Kapowski can fight about it. Screw it. Might as well.
That is brilliant. Wow.
That solves everything.
We've just made history here. We've just written the book. We've written the UFC schedule for the next 3 months on Fight Island.
I know. Fight Island. I'm just a source of ideas for Fight Island. I'm down.
The Fight Island commissioner, Michael Chiesa. I think we got something going here. But
there we go.
What a way to end it with the future and potential commissioner of Fight Island, Michael Chiesa, wrapping up another edition of What the Heck on MMAfighting.com. And I still stand with my feet firmly in the ground that he is wrong in this Kelly Kapowski versus Topanga thing. And if you think it's Topanga too, you're out of your mind. Sorry, you're just wrong. But it's your opinion. I'll respect you either way, but you're just wrong. But thanks for watching and listening to the show here on MMAfighting.com and all of our other broadcasting platforms. Make sure you subscribe wherever you're getting the show. YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you get your favorite podcast. Because not only do you get this show, you get a whole bunch of other great stuff as well. You get all the A-Side live chats. You get Eurobash with Pete Carroll and Niall McGrath. Plus, a lot of UFC 249 coverage and stuff over the next several days. That'll be popping up on all those platforms as well. And a little birdie told me that a new show is coming to the network very soon, so stay tuned for that. And make sure you stay connected with MMAfighting.com for this crazy stretch of time for the UFC, which kicks off with UFC 249 on Saturday night. Our guy Jose Youngs is in Jacksonville, getting you all ready. He's going to be providing coverage, and we're going to be doing lots of stuff throughout the week and throughout the weekend. But that is it. I am done. My ramblings are finished. My name is Mike Heck, and as always, have a heck of a week, everybody.
You're listening to the Vox Media Podcast Network.